Chapter 44:29. It wasn't difficult for Rongqing to discern the slight disdain in the little stoic's tone. She glanced at her with a rather helpless gaze. Actually, it really was just an accident. Our fleet encountered Commandery Princess Wushuang. Both sides were negotiating when suddenly, violent winds and torrential rain, lightning flashed, and thunder rolled. How do you know? Rong looked at her curiously. Arbor glanced askance at Minyasi, who was quickly walking forward. He also encountered it? Rong wasn't stupid and immediately caught on. We were tricked by a formation? Who do you think tricked us? Is it Tianyun? Does he want to slaughter us all in one go? Arbor turned to Rongqing and the others with a stoic face. Based on my intuition. Rongqing nodded, looking like she was listening attentively. It's probably because your large group was annoying, so someone purposely set up a formation to temporarily trap you on the island for several days. Once the time limit is up, you'll probably be able to leave. Everyone was stunned. Arbor glanced at them coldly. The person who lured you onto the island definitely had no intention of harming you. Otherwise, they only needed to lure you into the realm of misfortune. Arbor swept a glance over them. Just the nightmares alone are enough to scare you to death. The realm of misfortune was equivalent to a realm of certain death. How many people did they think would be able to escape unscathed after they entered? Then what about those green-eyed monsters on the island? Aren't those strange things created by Tianyun? Someone immediately questioned. Arbor shook his head. Those corpses can only climb and can't stand upright. Their eyes even emit green flames. They should be puppets controlled by a kind of ghost fire heart-devouring worm that likes to parasitize corpses. Ali still wanted to speak, but Arbor continued indifferently. Tianyun has already improved the corpse puppets to special class rank 2 and created a type of corpse puppet that can control zither sounds to kill humans. So how could this kind of thing possibly catch their eye? Tianyun already disdains playing with such low-class things. Now, Tianyun is wantonly refining and improving the medicinal liquid to accelerate the crystallization in the corpse puppet's brain. In the future, he may be able to create a perfect corpse puppet that is closer to a human. It may even be able to hide in the crowd and be unknown to others. Hearing this, Rongqing, Minyasi, and the others couldn't help but shudder. Tianyun can actually develop the corpse puppet cause to such an extent? Arbor nodded with an expressionless little stoic face. It's up to you to believe it or not. Of course I do. Crown Prince Rong immediately nodded his head, showing his unconditional support. When His Majesty left, he instructed us to listen to your opinions. His Majesty praised you for your intelligence and wisdom, which is unique in the world. Your analysis is so orderly and logical. It must be correct. Everyone couldn't help but burst into laughter. This Prince Qing's heir looked like a talented, elegant, and exceptionally fine young master, but she didn't expect that he actually had the habit of being a lackey. He didn't forget to seriously praise the little stoic every 3 sentences and conveniently mentioned that this was their monarch's intention. His heart was clear to all. The little stoic looked at him very expressionlessly. However, everyone inexplicably felt that the little girl seemed to be in a pretty good mood right now. Could it be that this fellow subconsciously liked to listen to other people's praises? But it made sense when they thought about it. This stoic face might normally be expressionless, but her mental activities were probably richer than anyone else's. Chapter 44:30. Probably the more arrogant and icy her face was, the more awkward and fiery her heart was. Everyone couldn't help but glance at the little stoic a few more times. Her expression was solemn as she asked without batting an eyelid, "You said Wushuang also came?" Rongqing nodded. A day ago, she exchanged a few words with Commandery Princess Wushuang across the boat. At the time, third young Master Fu was also by her side. We're fine, so those two should also be fine. Rongqing merely thought she was worried about the safety of the Divine Prefecture Army, so she comforted her. Arbor muttered to himself for a moment before nodding and saying, "That's probably the case." "May I ask who lives on this deserted island?" Rong asked in confusion. "What are your intentions for keeping us here for no reason?" Arbor appeared very calm. "Since we're here, Let's just take things as they come. There was no use in being anxious. In any case, everyone had an inner world and had food and drinks. If worse came to worst, they could just cultivate here. What do you mean, since we're here? Of course you can say that when you're not injured or in pain. If you're locked up on this deserted island for 3 to 5 years, let's see if you can still smile at that time. Ali grabbed Akir, who was twisting her body with all her might. Akir, don't. He wanted to persuade her to stop provoking this fiendish little stoic. In the end, he simply couldn't hold onto this jealous woman and flung her away. Hand over the antidote. Arbor turned around and stared icily at the woman who stumbled over. Before she could even get close, Crown Prince Rong signaled with his eyes and the woman was stopped by 2 Zhangzhou guards. Akir struggled with all her might as her arms were grabbed. She shouted like a madwoman, "Woman, don't push your luck. Hurry and hand over the antidote." Arbor couldn't help but frown and turned to look at Ming Yasi. "I've always wanted to ask you a question." Ming Yasi's intuition told him that this guy wouldn't ask any good questions. His mouth silently twitched, but his expression was very calm. "Speak. Why do you always keep an idiot by your side to cause trouble? Doesn't this show off your intelligence?" Ali's eyes couldn't help but widen. "You?" How could he speak like this without giving Akir any face? Akir understood the meaning in her words. She bared her fangs and brandished her claws as she angrily said, "What did you say? You woman, how dare you?" Minius turned a deaf ear to Akir's shouts. He glanced at Arbor and said seriously, "Would you abandon your younger siblings if they were stupid?" Arbor thought about it and shook his head. Ming Yasi shrugged helplessly. "But I will beat them up and reform them." The little stoic answered very smoothly, and her expression was even deadpan. "If there's no use beating them once, then beat them once every day. If that doesn't work, then I'll beat him up 3 times a day." Everyone was speechless. To be honest, being your sister-in-law might be quite tough. Ali's expression twitched slightly, and his entire face twisted strangely. Inexplicably, Ming Yas couldn't help but laugh. Suppressing the laughter that was about to slide down his lips, he nodded and said, "What do you mean?" "You may begin." Everyone. Rong Qing coughed lightly and led the group of Zhangzhou guards to silently retreat a dozen or so steps, leaving an empty space for Ming Province's crown prince to do as he pleased. Ming Yasi helplessly glanced at Arbor before raising his hand slightly and saying, "Guards." 2 Ming Province guards immediately arrived behind His Highness. Their expressions were very serious, but they also carried a faint trace of apprehension as they sneaked a glance at the little stoic. Chapter 44-31. "Brother, what are you doing?" "Brother." Akir was terrified and uneasy. She vaguely sensed that something bad was about to happen. Sure enough, when the 2 Nether Province guards used rods to lift her up and pin her to the ground, Akir finally sensed that something was amiss, and her body started to tremble slightly. Her big brother Yasi actually ordered people to beat her with rods in public? It wasn't that she couldn't withstand those rods with her cultivation, but she truly couldn't bear it. "Big brother." Ali also jumped in fright and hastily went up to plead for leniency. "Big brother, Akir knows she was wrong. Can't you spare her this time?" Yasi swept him a glance with an indifferent expression. "Do you still want to save her?" The little stoic had already spoken. How could she be satisfied if he didn't give her a good beating? Relent and save her? Ali glanced at Yasi oddly. His lips moved for a long time, but he couldn't spit out a single word. On the other side, Akir's mournful screams had already resounded loudly. Yasi glanced at his younger brother considerately. "There's no harm in saying what you want to say." "Big brother, you didn't really listen to the little stoic's slanderous words, right? What 1 beating a day? If it didn't work, then 3 beatings a day? This couldn't be true, right?" Yasi swept him a glance. Although the little stoic's attitude isn't good, she's right about one thing. You and Akir should indeed be taught a lesson. One had to know that there was always someone better than you. Of course, it wasn't good to keep stirring up trouble, but it was even worse to stir up trouble when you didn't have the strength. Ali looked at his older brother in astonishment. If it was possible, tears might be streaming down his cheeks right now. Did Big Brother really get successfully brainwashed by the damn stoic? Akir gnashed her teeth and shouted angrily, Arbor, just you wait. I won't let you off H. Before she could finish speaking, her mouth was stuffed with a dirty cloth strip. The Nether Province guard who stuffed her mouth noticed Akir's murderous gaze, and his hands started trembling. Unfortunately, there was nothing he could do. With just one look from the Crown Prince, a mere guard like him could only follow orders. On the other side, a trace of killing intent flashed past Arbor's eyes. Both Yas and Ali, who were standing beside her, saw it clearly and were startled. Ali didn't understand this girl, but Ming Yasi understood her too well. If it was too troublesome, she would personally solve the problem. Akir, this fellow, spoke without thinking, but she didn't know that she had reached a critical juncture of life and death. Don't worry, after we go back this time, I will send her to the northern desert to train her temperament and skills. She will never appear in front of you again. When Ali heard this, his face instantly turned pale. He turned to look at Akir, who also had a shocked expression, and hurriedly begged for mercy. Big Brother, how can Akir go to a place like the northern desert? Everyone else can go there to train, so why can't she? Ming Yas glanced at him coldly. Akir was indeed extremely stupid. She still didn't know the principle that trouble comes from the mouth. He was saving her. He felt stifled just thinking about it. His sister-in-law was unreliable, and the little stoic was right. Education really had to start from a young age. Back then, when she courted death, he would beat her 3 times a day. He guaranteed that she would be obedient now. Young Master Ding floated to Arbor's side and glanced at her. Release? Sir Jojo swept him a glance before his gaze landed on Ming Yas's face. Chapter 44-32. Yasi immediately understood and nodded. It's a deal. It was already pretty good that Akir's life could be preserved. Wasn't it just throwing her into the northern desert for training? Perhaps she could even improve her abilities and combat strength. Of course, whether Akir could understand Big Brother's painstaking efforts was another matter altogether. Ali glanced at Yasi and opened his mouth, but under the latter's stern gaze, he ultimately shut his mouth. At least he still had some brains and naturally saw that the little stoic already had the intention to kill Akir. If Akir still didn't know what was good for her, she would very likely become an ice-cold corpse. With this stoic's stubborn personality, if she really wanted to kill, even Big Brother probably wouldn't be able to stop her. Ding Yun's poison was related to his special ability. Normal antidotes were completely ineffective, and only apothecaries could cure it. However, the level of the medicine was lower than the level of his special ability, so it couldn't be cured. Yasi glanced at him somewhat guardedly. For the majority of people, special groups like Poison Masters and Demonic Masters seemed to be classified as malicious and were very dreaded. Akir was knocked unconscious and carried away. Upon seeing this, Arbor's gaze was full of disdain. She actually fainted after just 20 or so strikes. It could be seen that she was truly spoiled since childhood. After all, she wasn't a normal person. She was clearly a spiritualist, but her body was so delicate. She was truly a dregs piled up by medicine and couldn't be compared to spiritualists who had properly advanced. When Ali saw the little stoic's gaze, he couldn't help but feel extremely stifled. However, he learned his lesson this time and silently shut his mouth, no longer criticizing this fellow. Arbor walked along the large field and looked at the hole in the stone wall that someone had dug out. There's a tunnel next to it? It's connected to a cave about the same size as this one. Rong Qing followed beside her and said, When we came, we already cleaned up those corpses. At first, everyone thought it was a zombie produced by Tianyun. Rong Qing paused. Now that I think about it, it really is the deep fire heart-devouring worm you spoke of. No wonder there are always 2 balls of fire emitting from the eyes after killing the corpses. That thing shouldn't be difficult to deal with. Rong Qing thought of the nether fire heart-devouring worm that could be destroyed with a single slap. I just don't know how many there are. Although there were quite a few of them, if they were to really fight in this cave, they were afraid that the flying spiritual energy would accidentally injure their own people. At that time, he really didn't know whether to fight or not. How big is this place? Arbor asked on a whim. I'm afraid it won't be too small. Rong Qing pondered for a moment and said, just look at these two caves, they can hold over 20,000 people. You can see how vast this underground cave is. I wonder if the people who locked you up here can hear you, Arbor muttered to himself. What? Rong Qing lowered her head and saw the little stoic take out a trumpet-shaped object. The corner of his mouth twitched unconsciously. Little rascal's hand gestures flew, and dozens of talismans were thrown out. Ripples immediately appeared in the surroundings. Rong Qing raised her eyebrows. A soundproof wall? After a few whooshing sounds, a faint explosion was heard. Yasi walked up and looked around. Someone actually set up a soundproof wall? Naturally, it's because I think you guys are noisy, Arbor answered honestly with disdain in her eyes. Chapter 44-33. How are we arguing? Ali retorted indignantly. Ever since we stepped onto this lousy island, we've been locked up in the same place for more than 4 to 5 days. There's no way out at all. Arbor uttered an "oh" and raised the megaphone in his hand. What are you doing? You do it. Arbor suddenly handed the megaphone in his hand to Ali. She felt that she needed to maintain her stoic and calm image in front of outsiders. Wouldn't it be better to find a random lackey to do this kind of shouting mission? Ali was dumbfounded, but his hand still involuntarily took the megaphone. You shout. Arbor nodded at him. Shout what? Shout whatever you want. You can even curse. Ali, I'm crazy, right? Casually shouting and cursing at the air? Don't dilly-dally. Arbor glanced at him with an expression that said, why are you so stupid? If Jojo's Lotus was here, there was no need for Jojo to say so much nonsense. He would know what Jojo meant with just a glance. Ali looked at Ming Yasi and Rong Qing in bewilderment. Ming Yasi said helplessly, go ahead and curse. Don't you know how to curse? How do you usually scold Old Hu? Scold him again. Strategist Old Hu was sitting in the group and watching the show. Was he implicated even though he was sitting so far away? Ali was a bit spirited now and cupped his hands at Old Hu. Big brother told me to curse, please bear with it. Why didn't you go shit when your big brother told you to? Ali chuckled as he turned on the megaphone. He cleared his throat and let out a string of curses. Arbor stood next to Ali calmly without even a crease in his brows. The other people in the cave couldn't take it anymore and covered their ears. This sound was too loud. It was as if thunder was raining down from the heavens, rumbling non-stop. Don't you think it's noisy, Jojo? Ming Yasi looked speechlessly at the little stoic who was as cold as snow. In the past, this little fellow would find the slightest bit of noise noisy and want to throw people out at any time. But now, this little stoic was as unmoving as a mountain, as if she hadn't heard him. Rong Qing couldn't help but smirk. Don't ask. She can't hear what you're saying right now. As soon as Ali opened his mouth, the little bastard had already blocked his hearing. A pair of pitch-black eyes turned, and its gaze wandered along the cave walls. It wasn't long before Arbor swiftly turned around and swiftly flashed towards a certain direction, and his hand was like a bolt of lightning as he grabbed out of thin air. An angry roar immediately sounded in the air. Stop cursing! Layers of ripples appeared on the cave wall in an instant. A shriveled and thin little old man suddenly appeared on the ceiling. His expression was somewhat flustered and exasperated as he angrily lowered his head and glared at them. Everyone around was shocked. When did this person appear on top of the cave wall? His aura was so faint that no one noticed it. Could it be that he used some kind of teleportation talisman? You little child, how dare you be so rude to this old man? The old man fumed as he glared at Arbor, who was hovering in the air in front of him. Arbor didn't say another word and reached out to grab his left hand. The old man retreated a step, and his figure flickered like a candle. Arbor swiftly retreated several steps and threw a dozen or so reveal talismans at a corner. He swiped his hand and picked up a golden club in passing, running over with it on his shoulder. Thump, 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 thump. That bandit tyrant's skills were breathtaking. Arbor swung his golden club and smashed it against the wall. Chapter 44-34. His speed was so fast that the dumbfounded crowd was completely bewildered by his actions, unable to make heads or tails of his actions. She. Ali, who had already stopped making noise, turned to look at big brother Ming Yasi. What is she doing? What was going on? Why did he feel like his intelligence couldn't keep up with the little stoic's speed? There should be quite a few people who felt the same as him among the crowd. Among so many people were Big Brother, Rong, and young Master Ding the only ones who could understand what this fellow was doing? Breaking talisman formations. Ming Yasi glanced at Ali exasperatedly. He wanted to give him some pointers, but he muttered to himself for a moment before saying, Ali, you should read more books. Ali? Could it be that he couldn't keep up with the little stoic's unrestrained thoughts if he didn't read books? Was this his fault? This fellow didn't say anything when she did things, so who could understand the meaning behind her eyes? After Arbor smashed the stone wall fiercely, the stone wall directly collapsed with a loud bang, and a pile of rubble slid down with a crash. It instantly provoked a wave of furious roars. Stop, stop, stop. You little bastard, stop right there. The shriveled little old man they saw on the ceiling earlier jumped out from behind the stone wall with a bang, his face covered in dirt. At this time, his wrinkled old face was completely scrunched up, and his pupils were turning upside down. His finger that was pointing at Xiao Mu was trembling, as if he had suddenly contracted epilepsy and could not stop at all. Sir Jojo cupped his hands in salute and said solemnly, Senior, this junior greets you. Everyone, my heavens, this young crown prince consort was so ferocious just a moment ago. How did she become so adorable all of a sudden? Sister-in-law, sister-in-law. Is my sister-in-law inside? Get the fuck out of the way, why are you blocking my way? Sister-in-law, 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 sister-in-law. I heard your voice, sister-in-law, sister-in-law. Shuang, don't be so agitated. Lil sister-in-law is inside. Why are there so many people? Go away, go away. Sister-in-law, sister-in-law, did something happen to you? Did anyone bully you? I'm coming, sister-in-law. And Wu Shuang hopped all the way, trying to see the figure in the depths of the cave. However, the large group of tall and strong soldiers in front of her blocked her line of sight. She could only keep jumping and shouting, Sister-in-law, sister-in-law. Shuang is here to save me. Arbor's face darkened as he turned to look. His line of sight was blocked by Ming Yasi, young Master Ding, and Rong. She glanced at them and suddenly asked, Is it funny? Crown Prince Rong was the first to shake his head. What's so funny? What a joke. Jojo's way of doing things is rather serious. It's not funny at all. Young Master Ding was speechless. Did this guy inherit Duan Yu's genes? Or perhaps, before he left, Duan Yu had solemnly warned him about the key points he had to understand when interacting with Sir Jojo. It had to be said that Cult Master Ding was telling the truth. Along the way, when Crown Prince Rong had nothing to do, he would take out the letter the monarch gave him and study it. Sure enough, he immediately gained a favorable impression of Sir Jojo upon meeting him, insolent child. The shriveled old man finally shouted after inhaling and exhaling for a long time. You scoundrel! Brat! Look at what you've done! The old man was fuming with rage as he pointed at the mess behind him. Chapter 44-35. Arbor followed his finger and looked in that direction. She saw several long tables and benches placed in an inner room behind the stone wall. The tables were piled with all kinds of shiny ores and crystals. A four-legged cauldron was suspended in the middle of the room. Faint green flames emerged from the bottom of the cauldron, and gusts of air hit the cauldron lid, making gurgling noises. The little stoic was curious and walked toward that cauldron. This is the legendary weapon refining cauldron ranked second, the Heavenly Forge Cauldron? When everyone heard the words, Heavenly Forge Cauldron, their expressions immediately changed, and their gazes simultaneously looked toward that lean and skinny little old man. The old man was dressed in gray and coarse hemp clothing. His hair was disheveled and his face was covered in dirt, and his body emitted a sour stench. From the looks of it, he had been standing in this inner room for who knew how long. He probably hadn't taken a bath. "Who are you, little doll?" The old man stroked his 3-inch short beard and glanced at her. He said in deadly earnest, "You actually know the name of this old man's heavenly forge cauldron. This old man has been in seclusion for many years, so I didn't know there was someone in this world who could recognize this old man's heavenly forge cauldron. You are Senior Hao Guang, right?" "That's right." Hao Guang put on a gratified expression and stroked his short beard again, his expression easing for a rare moment. "What is this little doll's name, and who is your master?" "Do you recognize Ancestor Xuanji?" the little stoic asked indifferently. Her words were like a stone thrown into a lake, immediately causing people's moods to fluctuate wildly, creating layers of ripples. Hao Guang abruptly widened his eyes and looked at her cautiously. "For you, I am Ancestor Xuanji's personal disciple." Arbor stood with her hands behind her back and got straight to the point. Her expression was extremely solemn, cold, and unsmiling. But it was this serious little appearance that made Ming Yasi, Rong Qing, and Ding Yun's lips twitch uncontrollably. They kept feeling that this little stoic in front of them was a bit like a quack. "What?" "I am the second-generation head of the Xuanji school." The little stoic's serious face was unperturbed as she straightened her back and stood in front of the light. Arbor. Everyone suddenly realized that Senior Scattered Light's old face had changed a lot. His face was flashing with different colors, and it was very exciting. He was stunned for a few seconds before he snapped, "What did you say?" "I'm your second-generation sect master," Arbor continued expressionlessly. "Do you know Seniors Qin Qi and Lu Zheng?" Hao Guang's body trembled slightly. Suddenly, he opened his small eyes wide. Looking at his shocked expression, his eyeballs almost fell out of their sockets. "Qin Qi? Lu Zheng? You really are you? The second-generation sect master of the Xuanji school?" If he had not come into contact with Qin Qi and Lu Zheng, how would he know their names? Moreover, the little girl's serious expression made him unable to think of anything else. With this kind of stoic face, she probably disdained to lie to deceive people. Besides, this matter couldn't be concealed for too long to begin with. Whether she was the second-generation sect master or not, he would eventually encounter Qin Qi and Lu Zheng in the future, and he would know after asking. "Do you have any proof?" Arbor thought for a moment. "I gave the nameplates of your 103 first-generation disciples to Seniors Qin Qi and Lu Zheng. Your name should be on them." Hao Guang's eyes widened. "You? I've already assimilated the Xuanji pill that Ancestor Xuanji gave me," the little stoic continued to say in a shocking manner. She shook her head. "There's no other proof." Chapter 44-36. But at this point, as long as Hao Guang wasn't an idiot, he should know that the stoic face didn't lie to him. This fellow quickly changed his indignant expression and stared at Arbor with bright eyes. He cupped his hands in greeting and said, "Greetings, second faction master." The second-generation sect master, Lord Xiao, looked at him expressionlessly. "Tell me, why did you lock them up here?" Hao Guang hastily grumbled, his expression especially aggrieved and helpless. "Second faction master, this subordinate didn't want to do this. But a large group of them are making a racket. It's truly annoying." Ali's eyes immediately widened. "Senior Hao Guang, you really lured us ashore and imprisoned us because we were making a racket? But although we made a racket for a day or two, we will leave in the end. Wouldn't it be even more noisy if you imprison us on the island like this?" They weren't a bunch of dead people, so they naturally would do their best to find a way out. How could they not make a ruckus after going back and forth? Of course it can't be because of that senseless reason. Hao Guang glared at him grumpily and looked at the people standing around the little stoic as if she wanted to say something but hesitated. He turned to look at Arbor and said, "Second faction master, there's a reason for this. The Tianji Mystic Realm in the Snow Ridge Holy Land will open in a few days." That old man stroked his short beard and harumphed. "If these people accidentally step inside, humph humph, they will die without a doubt. One of the entrances is at the bottom of the sea where the formation is set up. I lured them ashore so that they wouldn't continue to dawdle there. If these people insist on staying there, I reckon they won't be far from death." Arbor glanced at him and said with a slight nod, "Many thanks." If these bumpkins really entered that mystic realm, they wouldn't be able to get help even if they cried for help. It would be a joke if the elites of the 3 provinces were scattered in a lousy mystic realm before they were assembled. Senior Hao Guang lamented, "Actually, there are at least 2 mystic realm entrances nearby. The one at the bottom of the sea is one of them. There's a realm of misfortune on the island. Speaking of which, when I came out of seclusion today, I sensed that the realm of misfortune had disappeared for no reason. I don't know what happened." Hao Guang sighed with a perplexed expression. Young Master Ding silently glanced at the little stoic beside him. Just as the latter was about to speak, he heard a joyful cry. "Sister-in-law!" And Wu Shuang finally squeezed through the crowd and ran to her side with a cheer. "I didn't hear wrongly." And Wu Shuang tilted her head with a grin and quickly hopped up to her. "You're really here? It's great to see you." Princess Wu Shuang looked around her and asked, "Where is my eldest brother?" Speaking of this, Sir Jojo was a little angry. His little stoic face tightened as he said, "Your big brother has been running for a long time. We don't even know where he is now." Logically speaking, after the realm of misfortune was broken, Mo Lien and the venerable Peach Blossom Immortal should have been able to sense her aura. But now, the sapling also spread out its hands, indicating that neither of them had contacted it. "Eldest brother is missing?" And Wu Shuang was astonished. No wonder it was so strange. She knew it. If sister-in-law was here, how could eldest brother not be by her side? "Sister-in-law, don't worry. I'll accompany you to find him." Princess Wu Shuang grasped Wu Shuang's small hand. She looked at the old man in astonishment as if she had just realized that there was someone in front of her. "This senior is?" Chapter 44-37. This is Senior Hao Guang. As soon as Arbor finished speaking, Wu Shuang opened her mouth wide. Third young Master Fu also looked at the old man in surprise. This ordinary-looking old man standing with his head held high turned out to be the legendary divine weapon master, Senior Hao Guang. The old man who owned the heavenly forging furnace? Third young Master Fu and Princess Wu Shuang cupped their hands and greeted him. "Greetings, Senior Hao Guang." It's rumored that Senior Hao Guang lives near the Snow Ridge Holy Ground. I didn't expect to see him today. Princess Wu Shuang was very excited. "I heard that Senior's heavenly forging furnace is known as the strongest furnace in the world. Can I have a look at it?" The old man said proudly, "You have good taste." He stepped aside and waved his hand. The furnace hanging in the middle of the room fell into his palm with a whoosh. It shrunk to 2 feet in size and started to burn. And Wu Shuang's little face was full of curiosity. She was about to touch the furnace when Arbor grabbed her. Arbor shook his head at her. "The furnace fire is full of yang energy. I'm afraid your touch will be hurt." The old man was the owner of the heavenly forging furnace, so he would not be hurt by it. As for other people, if they touched it casually, the consequences could be foreseen. And Wu Shuang immediately understood. She nodded her head repeatedly. Then she rolled her big eyes in a circle. Seeing her expression, Arbor could not help but laugh secretly. This guy was blatantly coveting the old man's heavenly forging furnace. Thinking that he had also planned to rob the old man's heavenly forging furnace, Arbor could not help but raise his hand to scratch his chin and pull in Wu Shuang again. And Wu Shuang was staring at the heavenly forging furnace with all her attention. At this moment, she was pulled back by Arbor and slightly came back to her senses. She smiled at the old man awkwardly. "Senior Hao Guang, by the way, have you lived here for a long time to forge weapons?" Hao Guang nodded. "Of course." The old man looked at Wu Shuang suspiciously. Maybe the princess's eyes were too obvious. "You're also interested in refining?" Princess Wu Shuang nodded without hesitation and took out something from her pocket. "Senior, please take a look." Arbor and third young Master Fu's eyelids twitched slightly. They saw the old man take the ring from Wu Shuang's hand and touch it in surprise. With a flick of his hand, a stream of light slid across the ring. It instantly turned into a long sword and fell into the old man's palm. The 3-foot-long green peak shone with a cold sword light. This sword was the frost sword that the crown prince had given to the princess. The blade itself was covered with a layer of frost power. When the sword was swung, frost energy would constantly emit. Even spirit realm cultivators would find it difficult to get close to him, let alone ordinary people. Some of the spirit realm soldiers sitting nearby felt a layer of coldness pass through their clothes. They couldn't help but shiver as faint sparks appeared in their eyes. What a peerless sword! Good, it's really a peerless sword. The old man's eyes shone with a strange light. It's a perfect form, close to a sacred weapon. I've been in seclusion for many years. I didn't know that there was another divine weapon master in this world. And Wu Shuang pouted and tilted her head. Senior Hao Guang, how do you know that this sword wasn't made for me? Hao Guang immediately glared at her and rolled his eyes. Do you think I'm a fool? This old man has observed your hands, and I can tell that they are not used for refining tools. Ah! And Wu Shuang snorted. Chapter 44:38. Rolling her eyes, she raised her small white hand and reached out to Hao Guang. Give it back. Hao Guang was holding the sword and admiring it carefully. Hearing in Wu Shuang's words, he said impatiently, Wait. What are you waiting for? And Wu Shuang glanced at him and continued to poke him with her finger. Give it back. Don't dawdle. It's my sword. This sword has a talisman array attached to it. The power of frost is not affected at all. The old man sighed. There are always new talents in every generation. Girl, don't rush to take it back. Hao Guang's dog eyes were almost shining. May I ask who made this sword? Princess Wu Shuang smiled at him and crooked her small hand at him. Mr. Jojo looked at Hao Guang expressionlessly. He stretched his head and approached Wu Shuang. Senior Hao Guang, is this heavenly forging furnace for sale? Third young master Fu pressed his twitching eyebrows and looked at Arbor. He said helplessly, Shuang. And Wu Shuang glanced back at him and then turned to the old man. Senior Hao Guang, is it for sale? And Wu Shuang snatched the sword from his hand, turned it around, and put the ring on her finger. Guess, how old was this divine weapon grandmaster when he forged this sword? She asked. Guess, how old was the divine weapon grandmaster when he forged this sword? Miss Wu Shuang said proudly. Obviously, she didn't want the old man to guess. She said, 21 years old. The old man opened his small eyes wide. His eyes were shining. Is it for sale? Miss Wu Shuang asked again. Anyway, it will be more useful in your hands than in his. You don't want this divine weapon to be covered in dust, master? The old man thought for a while and coughed. You just want to find an excellent heavenly forging furnace, right? I can provide one for you. But not this heavenly forging furnace. The old man's eyes turned slightly, and he said with a smile, I see that you are all young talents, and your cultivations are very good. How about this? I'll point you in the right direction. Inside there, you'll definitely be able to find a refining furnace that's even better than the heavenly forging furnace. Sure enough, as soon as the old man said this, Wu Shuang immediately took the bait and asked with sparkling eyes, Where? Arbor was speechless. A mystic realm. Fecta's secret realm. The old man stroked his beard and smiled. Then he glanced at the young lady and said, Second headmaster. You don't have to go. Let the young people take risks and gain experience. It will be good for their cultivation in the future. And Wu Shuang was expressionless. My sister-in-law is a few years younger than me. Third young master Fu couldn't help but laugh. He turned to Hao Guang and said, Senior, may I know which expert created this Tianji secret realm? You don't need to know. You just need to know that this is a mystic realm set up by a shameless old bastard. Senior Scattered Light said disdainfully as if someone had stepped on his sore spot. Arbor blinked his eyes and felt that the old bastard's name sounded familiar. He carefully pondered over the Fecta secret realm several times and couldn't help but frown. Fecta Z. Great master of mechanisms and concealed weapons, Senior Tianjizi? Third young master Fu was shocked. Heavens! How many legendary old seniors were hidden in the Snow Ridge Holy Land of the Forgotten River realm? The old man snorted and glared at third young master Fu. What's there to be surprised about? That old bastard is the one who activated it. On the other hand, Xiaomu was also a bit taken aback. She really hadn't thought about it this way before. Chapter 4439. She really didn't expect that the old scoundrel whom seniors Lu Zheng and Chen Qi scolded countless times was actually that trap and concealed weapons master. Fate had to start from the Holy Water Sect's Maple Pavilion, right? At that time, the Tianji treasure blueprint created by senior Tianji Zi chased after her with all its might. Duan Yu and Emolian even smugly thought that it was because of her outstanding aptitude. Now, it seemed that it was most likely due to her bloodline. What kind of ill-fated fate was this? Her encounter with the two ancestors was actually so bizarre. That's right, according to Chen Qi, Lu Zheng and Mingguang, Arbor had reason to believe that this senior Tianji Zi was that heartless and unfaithful heartless man who betrayed senior Xuanji. In addition, senior Xuanji's bizarre third condition was that if she met Tianji Zi's disciple in the future, she had to use her strength to crush him and slap his face. From this, it could be seen that this was indeed a bizarre ill-fated fate, not two. She didn't expect to meet the two ancestors like this. Everyone secretly glanced at her stoic face. There seemed to be undulating waves under her stoic and serene appearance. But everyone was puzzled and looked at Sir Jojo's serene expression. What is it? Is there a problem? And Wu Shuang asked hastily. Arbor shook her head and looked up at the old man. When will the mystic realm open? Probably in the next 1 or 2 days. The old man's expression suddenly paused and he hastily shouted, Second sect master, you can't go in. You still have to lead our Xuanji sect to glory. She couldn't just die like this in the mystic realm that the old scoundrel set up. Arbor's expression was unruffled as she calmly said, I must go. The old man couldn't help but secretly regret it. If he had known earlier, he wouldn't have tricked the little girl next to him. The second sect master was actually so loyal. She was going to accompany her friends on an adventure, right? Second sect master, please reconsider. Why must you go to a dangerous place? How can young people like them go to such a dangerous place? You shouldn't set foot in it. I'm going to slap their faces. Everyone looked at her in bewilderment, thinking that they had misheard. Shouldn't Jojo-sama say, wherever my friends are, I'll be there? Your sect leader Xuanji has given me a strange mission. It's time to complete it. The corner of the old man's mouth twitched. Looking at the expressions of the young masters around the young lady, they were all trying their best to endure something. The old man suddenly burst into laughter. As he laughed, he looked at Crown Prince Rong and the others suspiciously. These people also looked like they wanted to laugh, but why were they holding it in? Don't you feel suffocated? Second sect leader, what do you mean? Arbor glanced at him coldly. Your sect master Xuanji asked me to find the descendant of Tianjizi's ancestor and slap his face. I thought about it. What's the point of slapping my disciple's face? Why don't I just enter his secret realm and crack all his traps and give him a slap in the face? What do you think? Isn't it precisely because you can't break his mechanism that you're wasting your time here for so long? Hao Guang was stunned, then burst into laughter. He laughed so hard that he kept slapping his thighs. Good. This is how the second sect master of Xuanji school should be. Arbor glanced at him. Rong Qing and the others couldn't help but twitch their mouths. How did the Xuanji school disciples come up with the title of second sect master? Second sect master, I'll prepare some defensive equipment for you. You must accept it. Don't worry, I've never thought of rejecting. Chapter 4440. And Wu Shuang looked at the old man's back view strangely. What's going on? Was I hallucinating? Why do I feel that this weird old man keeps calling you old? Does he think that you are very old? And Wu Shuang, third young master Fu said with a smile. The crown princess has inherited the position of the second-generation sect master of the Xuanji sect. I'm afraid that senior Hao Guang thinks that the crown princess just looks young. Everyone, they really did not know what to say. However, according to common sense, this was indeed the case. In the divine lands, very few female cultivators of the young crown princess age could reach the immortal state. Not to mention the biased heavenly Tao, even among the talented juniors in the family, there were very few who could reach the immortal state at this age. It was no wonder that Senior Hao Guang would think this way. No one thought of correcting Hao Guang's mistake. They just watched in silence and watched. Swoosh. The venerable peach blossom immortal pulled at one end of a wooden vine on the wall of the cave. "I'll go up first. If there's no problem, you can come up," he said and looked back at Emo Lien, who was frowning silently. "Alright, don't think about it." Seeing him like this, the venerable peach blossom immortal could not help but roll his eyes. "Who asked us to be so unlucky? We just got out of the realm of misfortune and accidentally fell into a pit. When the realm of misfortune broke and they both fell out, they should have been out of danger. Unfortunately, the place where they fell was a huge sinkhole. It was a man-eating sinkhole. A terrifying whirlpool pulled them down and dragged them into the depths of the cave in the blink of an eye. There were countless small caves of various sizes. The two wandered around for a long time and found that it was like a maze. If they could look down from above, they would definitely find this interesting place. There were tens of thousands of small caves connected to small caves. At first glance, they were densely packed like a beehive. However, the most interesting thing was that their divine senses were blocked. Oh, they could not fly. Therefore, they could not fly up and see the general situation of this place clearly. Therefore, a certain peach blossom suggested that he should climb up first to see what was going on. The two of them did not know what kind of damned place this was. Since it was such a trap, they naturally carried a trace of vigilance as they moved. Both of them had been fooled for no reason, so their moods were naturally not good. "Will Jojo be anxious?" Emo Lien asked in a low voice. "Yes, it's definitely urgent. Aren't we anxious too?" The venerable peach blossom immortal tapped his foot lightly and pulled on the winding vines, climbing all the way up. He stretched out a hand and waved at him. "Wait for me." Emo Lien raised her head to look at him. This fellow's speed was very fast. In just a short while, he had already crawled until he was only a black dot. Prince Emo tried to contact Little Tree, but to no avail. Since even divine sense could be blocked, it was obvious that external objects could not be contacted. With his consciousness sealed, he couldn't even summon Little Seven. Prince Emo could only stand at the bottom of the cave wall and pace back and forth, counting mushrooms. He was extremely frustrated. Suddenly, Emo Lien heard a series of shattering noises, and in the nick of time, he dodged to the side. He saw a slender white figure suddenly descend from the sky. Just as he was about to crash headfirst into the ground, Crown Prince Emo reluctantly went up to give him a kick out of camaraderie. The venerable peach blossom immortal staggered and swayed. He barely stabilized himself. "Why did you kick me?" Chapter 44-41. Emo Lien rushed forward, summoned Raven Moon, and stabbed at his shoulder. He Chen hurriedly turned his head to take a look, only to see that His Highness the Crown Prince's hand was extremely fast. In a split second, Raven Moon had picked up a wisp of ghostly fire on his shoulder and flung it at the cave wall. A sharp sound came from the green fire, as if something was about to fly out of the fire. Ma Shurchen suddenly threw a seed over. Under the rapid growth of the wood spirit, the seed sprouted roots, branches, and leaves, growing into a man-eating flower with a mouth full of sawteeth. It swallowed the green fire into its stomach. It chewed everything clean, along with the thing in the fire. Then, the man-eating flower drooped its head, and the entire flower disintegrated along with the wood spirit. Only a small puddle of green juice was left on the ground. Prince Emo withdrew his Raven Moon and silently took a few steps back. The heart-devouring worm of nether fire? He-Chen was a little stunned and turned to look at Emo Lien. The latter nodded slightly and muttered to herself for a moment. "It should be. Don't these things live on the bodies of dead people?" The venerable peach blossom immortal hurriedly took off his outerwear and threw it far away, a trace of disgust appearing on his face. It was so disgusting. He had wanted to take an outerwear from his inner world to change into. But the moment he moved, he realized he was done for. He couldn't open his inner world. Without divine sense, he naturally couldn't open his inner world. He had long forgotten about this. Looking at the outerwear he had thrown to a corner of the cave wall and landed on the damp ground, the venerable peach blossom immortal looked as if the sky was about to collapse. He wore a plain white inner garment and looked back at Emo Lien with a blank expression. That sad little expression was simply so unbearable. He finally understood why Sir Jojo liked to carry a small floral bag every time he went out for training. That was because the inner world wasn't omnipotent and could be sealed and blocked from time to time. Emo Lien was speechless. After thinking for a while, she reached into her clothes and took out a storage talisman and threw it into the air. After rummaging through the storage talisman, he took out a black robe and threw it to the senior immortal. Only then did he put away his resentful expression and put on his outer robe, muttering, "Jojo is biased. Why do you have a storage talisman and I don't?" Emo Lien said expressionlessly, "You have at least 20 or 30 storage talismans of this size with you. You took them all into your inner world. Who are you blaming?" The venerable Peach Blossom Immortal was speechless. This fellow's figure was similar to Emo Lien's. Naturally, he could wear the Crown Prince's outer robe. After changing into a clean and fresh set of ink-colored clothes, a certain someone said gloomily, "If only Jojo was here. Then, he could enter the star domain to wash up and change into clean clothes." No, Jojo would probably be in trouble here too. After all, this strange place blocked the consciousness. Whoever came here would be in trouble. Thinking of this, he couldn't be bothered to dwell on it. He turned to look at Emo Lien and said with a serious expression, "When I climbed up just now, I felt an irresistible force." Emo Lien raised her eyebrows. "An irresistible suction force pulled me down. It felt like after we fell out of the realm of misfortune, we were pulled into the sinkhole by an irresistible force. It was exactly the same." Prince Emo frowned slightly. "What should we do?" This was hilarious. Even Hu Shurchen didn't know what to do. Now, Prince Emo was asking him, he could only use a relaxed tone to comfort him without much sincerity. "Don't panic. There will be a way to solve it. At least the situation wasn't the worst yet." Chapter 44-42. The Venerable Immortal was unreliable, but Emo Lien was still reliable. At least, Prince Mo's storage talismans, food, drinking water, and all sorts of resources were all available. Also, who knew if it was because he had been assimilated by his wifey? Prince Emo had always liked to stuff talismans in his arms, waist, and sleeves, so he wasn't so poor that it made one's hair stand on end. They still had hope. The Venerable Immortal looked at him enviously and swore, "Next time, I'll stuff more things on me too. I definitely won't collect them all into my inner world." Actually, this was his Qiao's fault. This fellow had always lived in Qiao's star domain and had everything ready for him. He didn't need the Venerable Immortal to prepare anything. He only needed to call Qiao for whatever he wanted if Emo Lien didn't come down with him this time, and he was the only one left in this ghastly place. The Venerable Immortal couldn't help shuddering. Who knew when he would recover his divine sense? Although with his cultivation he wouldn't starve to death or thirst even if he didn't eat or drink for a year, but he didn't want to become an unkempt old scavenger covered in filth. At this thought, the Venerable Immortal couldn't help shuddering again. All the hair on his body stood on end. "Since going up doesn't work, then we'll go down," Mo Lien said after a moment of contemplation. She took out several black beads from her storage talisman. "What are these?" "Earth fire grenades, a type of concealed weapon." Prince Emo didn't have the mood to continue talking nonsense with Hishichin and threw out 2 earth fire grenades. Once the objects landed in the corner of the cave wall, they immediately exploded with a huge rumble. The Venerable Peach Blossom Immortal blinked. "Huh, what a powerful firearm. It's not affected in the slightest after landing in the water. It must be that brat Duan Yu who did it." Emo Lien chuckled in response to the Venerable Peach Blossom Immortal's question. A small hole was blasted out of the cave wall, and the area they were in collapsed several feet. If one looked down from the sky, they would see that the earth fire grenades had blasted out a small hole in one of the tens of thousands of beehives. What's the point of blowing it up here? Wouldn't it still explode into another cave? They had been walking in this place for at least 2 hours. They had been going around and around all kinds of caves of various sizes. "Are you stupid?" Emo Lien said coldly, "We're going around in circles in the cave. There's no need to blast it open." The venerable peach blossom immortal immediately understood. He widened his eyes slightly and asked, You want to blast open a passageway? Damn, you're really fierce. Looking at his refined and elegant appearance, as well as his elegant and handsome appearance, he was like an orchid tree in the wind. Sir Venerable Immortal tried his best to pin those gentle and refined words on Emolien, and he finally concluded with one word, savage. But this guy was actually so ferocious, which was completely inconsistent with his appearance. Although this earthly fire lightning is useful, do we have that many earthly fire lightnings? Reverend Immortal lowered his voice slightly. He silently glanced at the black box the Crown Prince took out from his storage talisman. When he opened the box, he saw several dozen rows of earthly fire lightning neatly arranged inside. Duan, you can actually give you so many? The venerable Peach Blossom Immortal looked at him in astonishment. Since when did the relationship between the two of them become so good? Weren't they love rivals? Weren't they political enemies? Didn't they dislike each other and feel uncomfortable if they didn't exchange a few words when they met? Chapter 44-43. I did, Emolien said calmly. The venerable Peach Blossom Immortal's eyes widened. You used Jojo to exchange? I'm going to tell Jojo. You used her to exchange for earth-fire grenades. You bastard, you're not a good person. Scram. Emolien glanced at him, then threw out 2 more earth-fire grenades. She said nonchalantly, I used my space to refine weapons in exchange. Boom. The cave continued to collapse. The ground in front of them opened up, and another cave appeared. Stay behind and keep your distance. Let me know if I stray off course. The venerable Peach Blossom Immortal nodded. All right. The two of them walked in a straight line, using earth-fire grenades to blast open a tunnel. If there were outsiders present, they would definitely be amazed, right? They couldn't get out even after going around in circles, right? Then they would blast open a straight line and see who could stop them. Lord Jojo didn't know that the two idiots were still busy blasting open the walls underground. Everyone felt that the ground would occasionally shake, but the tremors weren't too big. Therefore, no one raised any questions despite their worries. Second Sect Master. The old man stepped out of the inner room excitedly, holding a pile of defensive spirit weapons in his hands. Take a look and see if these are to your liking. Second Sect Master, these are for you. The old man stuffed a ring into her hands, his face full of pride. These are the best defensive divine weapons I've ever refined. Second Sect Master, keep them with you at all times. I guarantee your safety. Xiao Mu swept him a glance and nodded before hugging the large pile of things the old man handed over to her. Were you the one who caused those nether fire heart-devouring worms outside? The old man hurriedly shook his head. Of course not. Why would I create such disgusting things? They escaped from the old bastard's mystic realm. As he spoke, he scratched his head in embarrassment. I've been to the Fecta mystic realm several times, but every time I entered, the entrance was completely different from the last time. As he spoke, he placed several handmade maps in Arbor's hands, which were holding a pile of defensive spiritual artifacts. These are the places I've been to. The last time I went in, I accidentally triggered a mechanism and a group of heart-devouring worms flew out. They even followed me out of the secret realm. Where are the corpses? The corpses should belong to the adventurers who came to the island to train over the years. Hao Guang curled his lips and said, They always say that there are treasures in the holy land of Snowy Ridge, including the Dragon King's secret treasure. Actually, the Snow Mountain range is completely barren. There's nothing there at all. The only possibility is that the nearby sea region is connected to a mysterious abyss of the sacrificial sea. There might be secret treasures in the Fecta secret realm, but are they something that humans can take out? How many people go in and die? They can't come out at all. The old man looked at Arbor worriedly. Second Sect Master, I was wrong. I just wanted to trick those juniors to go in and suffer. I didn't expect you to go in as well. It's best if we don't go in if we can. That old bastard Fecta is not easy to deal with. Arbor nodded, but his expression was firm. Don't worry. I'll keep an eye on them. I'll make sure that the number of people who go in will come out. Hao Guang glared at him. Second sect master, I'm just worried about you. The others were none of his business. Arbor patted him on the shoulder. Don't worry. Chapter 44-44. Why do I feel so uneasy? Mi Guang thought. Lord Saintus. Crown Princess. Princess Wushuang. Third young master. A cacophony of voices came from behind the crowd. Arbor didn't even need to look back to know that the youths of the Phoenix clan and the Purple Forest Guards had finally arrived. They're here. Don't push. More and more people gathered. Arbor couldn't help but facepalm. There are too many people. Arbor looked expressionlessly at Ming Yasi and the others. The consequences will be unimaginable if chaos ensues. Tell us what to do. Crown Prince Rong quickly nodded. We'll just do as you say. Arbor glanced at the crowd. Let them stay here for now. I'll go to the beach with Wushuang and wait. No, I want to go with them. Crown Prince Rong shook his head and refused decisively. What a joke. If his emperor knew that he had left the little ancestor alone in such a dangerous situation, how could he expect to live a good life in the future? Arbor glanced at him and nodded. All right then. Make arrangements for them. While speaking, Feng Zhangqing and the others finally managed to squeeze over. They wiped their sweat and asked, Why are there so many people? Changqing, come with me to the Fectus secret realm. Zhangfei, take the clansmen and the Purple Forest Guards and stay here temporarily to wait for my big brother. No matter how big the drill ground was, it still felt congested with 30,000 people crammed into it. Feng Zhangfei glared at him. I want to go too. Don't mess around. Feng Zhangfei hurriedly comforted his jumpy younger brother and said in a low voice, Stay here and take care of the clansmen. Feng Zhangfei curled his lips unwillingly. The spirit energy on this deserted island is quite dense, Arbor said calmly. It's also very spacious. When the matter is settled, we might as well train here. He felt that it was better than Lisha Island. Most importantly, she had already shed all pretense of cordiality with the Forgotten River Dragon clan. Wasn't it reasonable for her to establish her own clan? This place was neither close nor far from the Forgotten River Dragon clan's territory. They were separated by a snowy ridge. Presumably, the Forgotten River Dragon clan wouldn't be so shameless as to visit this deserted island. All right. Without waiting for Crown Prince Rong's reply, Ming Yasi nodded with a cold expression. Wasn't it just requisitioning an island in the River of Forgetfulness? It didn't matter to him where he requisitioned. Come over here. Arbor moved to the side and walked out of the crowd. Many people who were going to the secret realm quickly gathered around him. Ali glanced in that direction and snorted as he turned around to face the soldiers. What are you looking at? Don't you have anything better to do? All of them were cultivating on the ground. It's still early. We have to stay here for a few more days. And Wushuang, Fu San, Feng Changqing, and Rong Qing stood together and whispered a few words. On the other side, young Master Ding and Ming Yasi looked at each other in disgust, then hurriedly turned their gazes elsewhere. Arbor distributed a large pile of defensive spirit artifacts that Senior Scattered Light had forged to the people present. When he passed them to Ding Yun, his hand paused slightly. He asked expressionlessly, Are you going to stay here and wait for Sikong Fuling? No need. Young Master Ding giggled. That girl Fuling is very clever. She should be here soon. Most importantly, a place like the Fectus secret realm is so interesting just thinking about it. How can I miss out on the fun? Arbor tossed the items into his hands, turned around and glanced at the 6 people. Let's go. Chapter 44-45. How could Senior Scattered Light be at ease? When he heard that they were about to set off now, he hastily ran out of the inner room and shouted repeatedly, Second Sect Master, this subordinate will bring you there. Be careful, there's a realm of misfortune on this island that can kill without spilling blood. If you fall inside, you'll be even more troublesome than that old geezer Tianjizi. That was a natural realm of misfortune. It was possible to break through it with humans, but a natural mystic realm, seriously there was nothing more to say. Arbor expressionlessly looked at Senior's scattered light. Ding Yun couldn't resist chuckling and said in a low voice, "Senior's scattered light, don't worry for nothing. That whatever realm of misfortune, it's already, let's go." The little stoic raised her small fist and directly cut off young Master Ding's nonsense. With a serious expression, she turned around and strode toward the tunnel outside the karst cave. Scattered Light glanced at the little stoic in confusion before turning to look at young Master Ding, who was holding back his laughter. He snorted and said with a glare, "Hurry and follow." Arbor's group of 7 followed Senior's Scattered Light, who was nagging as he led the way, out of the underground karst cave and walked through the long underground tunnel. After 30 minutes, they finally emerged from the surface, and a vast expanse of snow reappeared before their eyes. Hao Guang said complacently, "Only this old man can bring you out of this place so quickly. If you wander around inside, you might not be able to walk out even after several days and nights. Let me tell you, this isn't the most complicated terrain. If one of you happens to fall into the 1,000 caverns and 10,000 caves, that's really bad luck, As if he thought of something amusing, this old man actually started laughing out loud on his own halfway through his speech. Arbor kept a straight face and asked without batting an eyelid, "What do you mean?" After laughing heartily for a while, the old man couldn't resist patting his head and saying, "I forgot that you guys are very lucky and didn't fall into the 1,000 caverns and 10,000 caves. That place is truly troublesome. Caves are connected to caves, and there are tens of thousands of caves of various sizes. The main thing is that divine senses are blocked, and you can't even use your inner world. If you go to that ghastly place, there's no escape from bad luck. If you're lucky, you might be able to escape from there after 3 to 5 months. Then what about bad luck, Senior?" Princess Wushuang asked curiously. "Bad luck? You can stay here for a long time." The old man stroked his beard and said proudly, "Maybe after 30 years, his wife will have run away with someone else, and he will still be counting mushrooms in that hole." Oh, that's not right. No matter how strong a cultivator is, if he doesn't eat or drink for 30 years, he probably won't be able to survive. The corners of Crown Prince Rong's mouth twitched. "Senior, have you stayed in the 1,000 caves before?" The old man blew his beard and glared at Crown Prince Rong. "That's right. I did stay there for 3 months. He drew hundreds of maps. I'm finally out." Senior Scattered Light, who was good at drawing, revealed a boastful expression. "You guys haven't been to that place before. If you have, you'll know how amazing one's wisdom is to be able to come out." Everyone couldn't bear to listen to his boasting and hurriedly interrupted, "Senior, let's go to the beach quickly. If we miss the opening of the mystic realm, it won't be worth it." "What's the rush?" The old man rolled his eyes at them. Although the mystic realm opens these 2 days, how could it be so coincidental that it opens when you go there? Chapter 44-46. Arbor looked ahead expressionlessly and said coldly, "What's there to brag about? You sealed your inner world for 3 months. You couldn't eat, drink, wash, or even change your clothes. When you came out, you were still a barbarian." The old man's expression twisted slightly. Thinking of the painful experience, he couldn't help but want to bang his head against the wall. In the past, he hated making spatial artifacts the most, but after this guy made a bunch of spatial artifacts and hung them on his waist. He didn't dare to be careless anymore. No matter how strong a cultivator was, when they sealed their inner world, they could only stare at their own consciousness and roll their eyes. The 7 of them followed the angry old man to the beach. Suddenly, they stopped and looked at the big ship on the beach with a surprised expression. Seeing the ship, Rong Qing seemed to have thought of something. "Oh right, Senior, where's our previous ship? Did you hide it all?" Mi Guang snorted. "So many ships. Don't you find it annoying to have so many noisy ships parked there?" "I kept them all in the sealing ball." Everyone was silent. They looked at each other and moved their gazes to the ship on the beach. A ladder was put down from the ship. A group of people walked out and walked down the stairs. Arbor recognized at a glance that the girl walking at the front was the City of Shadows' 4th Miss, Mu Xiaoxue. The girl's face was beautiful and gentle. There was a mole at the corner of her eye. She didn't move like Sir Jojo. This weak little beauty was like a piece of paper that would be blown away by the wind. Even her voice was as soft as a mosquito. Arbor met her face to face and his gaze froze. For some reason, every time Arbor saw this daughter of the City of Shadows' first city lord, Mu Jinghong, he felt a strange sense of familiarity. The girl was a year younger than him. Logically speaking, such a weak and fragile appearance wouldn't enter Sir Jojo's eyes. But now, he had a trace of curiosity. The two flower protectors, Gu Yishuan and Zhao Yi, followed behind as expected. When everyone got off the boat, the two men, one in front and one at the back, held the corner of Mu Xiaoshui's dress while the other held Princess Xiaoshui's hand and led her down step by step. Arbor looked on expressionlessly, and Wu Shuang couldn't help but burst into laughter. And this is? Her memory was really bad. In fact, she should have seen the little princess of the City of Shadows before. Crown Princess. Mu Xiaoshui came forward and bowed politely. Her voice was very gentle and amiable, like a feather brushing one's heart. Jojo asked stiffly, "Why are you here?" Before the little princess could answer, Zhao Yi was the first to get angry. "Crown Princess, we're not from China. You'd better be more polite." And Wu Shuang rolled her eyes. "How is my sister-in-law rude? You're thinking too much. Don't tell me we all have to be like you, going up to your princess and holding her paws?" Mu Xiaoshui patted the back of Zhao Yi's hand and said softly, "Senior brother Zhao, don't be angry. The crown princess didn't mean to target me. She's used to being so direct." It was fine when she didn't speak. Once she spoke, Rong Qing, Ding Yun, and Wu Shuang, and the others all showed an indescribable expression. Her voice was too soft and coquettish, as if her bones had been extracted. Everyone couldn't help but tremble. The crown princess doesn't know. In the morning, a trace of the divine domain flowed on the surface of the sea, and the aura of divine power spread. We followed it and came here. Chapter 44-47. Arbor was a little surprised and glanced at Mu Xiaoshui. "You?" Gu Yishuan frowned. "That's us. But there are more than 100 people in the City of Shadows. What can I do for you, Crown Princess?" Arbor glanced at him and didn't say anything else. In fact, it didn't matter to her whether these people came or not. In any case, everyone would have to rely on their own abilities to enter the mystic realm. She really couldn't be bothered with the affairs of other people. Some people are always high and mighty, but don't forget that this isn't the territory of the divine land. You can do whatever you want. A cold-faced young woman followed Mu Xiaoshui and the others down the stairs and shot a cold glance in Xiao Mu's direction. "This is the Forgetting River. To the master of the Forgetting River, we and you are all outsiders. There's no difference." The woman stood beside Mu Xiaoshui and the others, her eyes full of provocation. She glanced at Arbor and then at Princess Wu Shuang. And Wu Shuang was dumbfounded. She looked the woman up and down. "Who are you? Why are you staring at us like that?" Lin Miao was fuming with anger. She hadn't expected Princess Wu Shuang to not remember who she was. She had always remembered the evil that Princess Wu Shuang had done to her. She didn't expect that she didn't take her seriously at all. On the other side, Arbor thought to himself, Princess Wu Shuang's memory is so bad. This little girl was so pitiful. She was so young, yet she was suffering from teenage girl dementia. When she was free, Jojo should treat her properly. Fortunately, the awkward atmosphere didn't last long. Princess Wu Shuang's personal guard, and Yang, couldn't help but step forward and whisper, "Princess, you've seen this ant on the street. Lin Miao of the Lin family in Rong City. You even asked me to investigate her family." Oh, is that so?" And Wu Shuang was still in a daze. Although she said a few times, it was obvious that she had long forgotten about the trivial matters of the Lin family of Fuzhou City. Lin Miao sneered. "Do you think you're the only ones who know that there is a secret realm on this island?" Previously, the light on the surface of the sea increased greatly. The people nearby should have seen it. The deity domain is about to open, and the aura of divine power is everywhere. Soon, more and more people will gather here, and there will be an endless stream. You want to resist all the cultivators gathered here with just a few people? Lin Muir laughed. Don't joke around. Are you done with your nonsense? And Wu Shuang retorted. Do you think it's just the few of us? Let me tell you, we have 30,000 men. Heh. Lin Miao rolled her eyes. Just because she was stupid didn't mean that Mu Xiaoxue was the same. Hearing this, Mu Xiaoxue's soft and fair face suddenly flashed with a trace of surprise. She hurriedly asked, I heard not long ago that the elites of the 3 prefectures will gather at the River of Forgetfulness. Could it be that you are? This girl looks like she has a brain. And Wu Shuang nodded. Her gaze swept over Lin Muir's slightly darkened face with disdain. She deliberately sneered. The Lin family in Rong City is really a small family. You haven't even heard of such big news. You. Lin Muir was so angry that she was about to step forward, but her sister Lin Jenner pulled her arm. She stopped in her tracks and glared at Lin Jenner angrily. Chapter 44-48. Lin Jenner had suffered several losses at the hands of Arbor and already knew how powerful she was. Even the entire Lin family together was no match for the crown princess. How could she resist by herself? Seeing Lin Muir glaring at her, she didn't care and stepped forward with a very polite smile. Sorry for making a fool of myself. What my sister said just now is true. There is no lie. Lin Jenner looked at Arbor and said, the aura of the divine realm can be clearly felt in the nearby sea. I believe that in a moment, the cultivators who are training nearby will all rush over. Arbor looked disapproving and said, oh, ending the conversation completely. Everyone in the City of Shadows and the Lin family felt a little depressed. They originally wanted to mock the other party, but in the end, the 30,000 people scared all their words back. They could swallow their anger and be humble and say a few words to the other party, but in the end, the other party would completely dismiss them with a single word. There was nothing more infuriating than being ignored. Just like Lin Muir, in her heart, she regarded the little crown princess as an imaginary enemy, but in the end, the person you regarded as an enemy didn't take you seriously at all. Lin Jenner hurriedly stopped Lin Muir, who still wanted to go forward and make a scene. She smiled slightly and looked at her sister with some warning in her eyes. They're here. While they were talking, someone suddenly shouted. Arbor and the others looked up and saw more than a dozen flying spirit beasts carrying groups of people over. Hao Guang stroked his beard and looked over with disdain. Humans die for wealth and birds die for food. There were so many people who didn't care about their lives. These people probably abandoned the ship midway and came here to follow the aura. They still had the salty and wet smell of the sea breeze on their bodies. Arbor withdrew his gaze and looked at Hao Guang. You go back first. Mu Xiaoxue looked at Hao Guang curiously and asked softly, may I know who this senior is? Hao Guang glanced at the crowd and didn't have the intention to explain at all. The old man turned to Arbor and cupped his hands. Second sect master, I'll go back first. Arbor nodded with an indifferent expression, similarly turning a deaf ear to Mu Xiaoxue's words. This kind of attitude didn't matter to others. However, in the eyes of the 2 flower protectors, Zhao Yi and Gu Yishuan, it was truly intolerable. Such an innocent and adorable junior sister is courteously asking for your name, and you actually dare to not answer? This was simply intolerable. So, Zhao Yi was the first to speak. What kind of attitude is this? At the same time, more than a dozen flying spirit beasts landed on the beach at the same time. About 100 people dismounted from the backs of the spirit beasts one after another and walked towards them. Among them were some juniors from aristocratic families who had come out to gain experience. They were escorted by their elders to join in the fun. Most of them were mercenary groups and ordinary xiozhe who were adventuring everywhere in search of opportunities. Most of the people didn't recognize Crown Prince Rong, Ming Yasi, and the others, nor were they familiar with the people of the City of Shadows. Since they weren't familiar with each other, they didn't speak rashly and just maintained a wait-and-see attitude. Another 4 or 5 spirit beasts flew over and landed on the beach one after another. Myo! A voice called out. Lin Myo returned to look and immediately smiled. Isin, you're here too. Big brother. Gu Isun quickly stepped forward. When she looked at Mu Xiaoxue, her eyes flashed slightly. Miss Mu. Big brother, what are you doing? Chapter 44-49. Gu Isun glanced over suspiciously, only to see Gu Yixuan and Zhao Yi standing in front of a skinny old man. Their faces were filled with anger. Gu Yixuan only had time to take a glance at his younger sister before glancing away, still glaring at Hao Guang. Hao Guang was simply baffled and looked at the little stoic standing on the side. Is there something wrong with these people? Why are they blocking this old man's path? Arbor's expression was unperturbed, and she didn't even bother to blink. Ignore them. Zhao Yi's face darkened, and he summoned his gray sword in the blink of an eye. Arbor, who had been ignoring them, gradually darkened her expression, and her voice as cold as ice slowly rang out. You want to die? Everyone's heart skipped a beat, and they inexplicably felt a heavy pressure assault them. A portion of itinerant cultivators and mercenaries hastily retreated, their faces revealing incredulous expressions. This young lady in front of them actually made their chests constrict with just her aura, making them practically unable to breathe. They absolutely couldn't carelessly offend such a young lady with such outstanding cultivation. At least, those with discerning eyes immediately thought that the little stoic must be on good terms with this person. Just say it if you want to die. Arbor beckoned, and the thunderclap's sword abruptly landed in her hand. The sword suddenly lit up, and a trace of lightning slowly circulated on it. Zhao Yi instantly became vigilant, and he slowly took a step back with the spirit sword in his hand. Meanwhile, Gu Yixuan was enraged and took a step forward. Don't tell me you want to commit violence in public? We're people from the City of Shadows, we're not under your control. Senior brother Gu. Mu Xiaoxue hastily went up to stop him and nodded apologetically at Arbor. Sorry. Senior brother is a bit irritable because he can't bear to see me wronged. Arbor looked at her strangely. The more she looked at her, the more she resembled a person. That person was also this gentle and soft all the time. She didn't even bear to speak loudly, as if she would trample ants to death if she breathed loudly. Can you guys stay away from me? The little stoic looked at them speechlessly. My temper really isn't that good. When I get angry, I might not even be able to control myself. Everyone was speechless. Also, Miss Imo, your voice is too soft. I can't hear you. Pooh. Princess Wushuang was amused. She wished for nothing more than to pounce on the little stoic and hug her while shouting, "Great minds think alike." She had long had enough of this group of strange people. Your brother and sister are close to each other. Can't you find a secluded place and enjoy yourself alone? Why do you have to put on such a show in front of them? Who doesn't have a man with good looks and temperament by their side? Was there a need to show off like this? And Wushuang realized that she was thinking too much. She guiltily looked at Third Fu, who was standing beside her. Third young master Fu sharply noticed the look his wife was giving him. He quickly turned his head and smiled at her. Wife. Princess Wushuang immediately turned her head around. Her face was inexplicably hot. This guy was getting more and more shameless recently. Ever since the betrothal ceremony, this guy started to indulge himself more and more. Every time he saw her, he would randomly call her wife, and look at her with flirtatious eyes from time to time. This stinky shameless guy. Hao Guang saw that his second-generation sect master was imposing and didn't look like someone who would suffer losses, so he relaxed. He turned his head and whispered a few words to her. Then he turned around and led in Yang and the others toward the karst cave. Chapter 44-50. However, they had only taken a few steps when they suddenly heard a huge tremor coming from the depths of the ground. The sound was so close that it seemed to have exploded under their feet. The huge impact made everyone's expression freeze slightly. The mercenaries and itinerant cultivators on the beach all showed a vigilant look and summoned their swords and sabers from their consciousness. Boom! The huge tremor came from under their feet again. The old man, scattered light, widened his eyes and looked into the distance in a daze. He saw that a huge hole had been broken in the ground by something and thick smoke was coming out from it. It was so choking that everyone took a few steps back. Could it be that some giant beast was going to climb up from the bottom of the hole? Everyone's expression was solemn and cautious. They tightened their grip on the swords and sabers in their hands for no reason. "Senior!" And Yang could not help but call out, "Is there another guardian beast here?" Senior's scattered light looked at the hole in confusion for a while and racked his brains to think. Smoke was still billowing from the hole not far away, but nothing was climbing out. The old man quickly shook his head and said, "I've never heard of it." No, it was because he had lived here for so many years and he had never encountered any giant beast. There are indeed giant beasts in the Tianji mystic realm, but I have never released them. He would not go so far as to deceive them to such an extent. If all the big guys in the mystic realm were to be released, the old man could not help but shudder. He had not lived such a peaceful life all these years. Everyone thought so too. If the senior released something, he would definitely tell the second-generation leader in advance. After all, in the senior's heart, the second-generation leader was the most important. In the old man's eyes, even a strand of hair of the second-generation leader of the Xuanji sect was more precious than them. Boom, 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 boom. While everyone was whispering and asking each other, a few more tremors were heard. This time, they could not help but sway from side to side. Arbor glanced at the huge hole. He saw a familiar figure jump out from the hole. Then, he spat twice and wiped the dust off his face. Immediately after, another person came out, his sleeves fluttering as he swept the thick smoke in front of him. Both of them were dressed in black robes. Their appearances were handsome and slender, but at this moment, their robes were stained with a lot of dust. A thick smell of smoke lingered around their bodies, making them look somewhat comical. Without waiting for the crowd to recover, they saw the two people walking like the wind, one in front and one behind in their direction. When they saw Sir Jojo's expressionless face, the two of them moved even faster, and in the blink of an eye, they were already in front of the little crown princess. Jojo! Jojo, what a coincidence! A certain crown princess's small face was expressionless, and no one could see any other emotions. And Wu Shuang's eyes widened, and she couldn't help but burst out laughing. "Oh my God, big brother! What's wrong with you, big brother? How did you climb out of that hole? Ah, look at you, you look so pathetic." Could it be that Senior was right and the two of you fell into the 1,000 caves and 10,000 caves? Get lost. Mo Lien glanced speechlessly at the troublemaker Princess Wu Shuang and threw a warning look at Third Fu. "Third young Master Fu, what did I do? You can't control your sister's mouth, so you're glaring at me?" Princess Wu Shuang did not know how to restrain herself and continued to laugh at her brother. Chapter 4451. It couldn't be helped. He was normally upright, clean, and handsome. It was rare to see him in such a sorry state. If she didn't properly dig at him, how could she live up to her venomous tongue? Shut up. Mo Lien irritably glared at his younger sister who was dragging him down before turning to look at his wife with bright eyes. His wife was still the best. She never mocked her husband. Arbor imperceptibly took a step back. His pitch-black eyes swiveled as his gaze roamed over the two people. The venerable Peach Blossom Immortal immediately widened his eyes and whipped Mo Lien's arm with his finger. "She's despising us. Did you see that? She retreated. She's despising you. You were contaminated by the deep fire heart-gnawing worm just now. Stinky." Mo Lien rebuked the venerable Peach Blossom Immortal with a frosty expression before taking a step forward. Sir Jojo stood there stiffly without moving. He blinked, his gaze landing on the dust on the crown prince's long hair. Then, he suddenly took out something like a rag from his inner world. The little stoic raised her hand to wipe the crown prince's head. Everyone, Prince Mo silently twitched his mouth. He didn't know whether to laugh or cry as he pulled down his wife's hand. "Jojo, do you know that Rotten Peach Blossom and I are really miserable?" Right, it's really miserable, my Jojo. I want to take a bath right now. I want to change clothes." The venerable Peach Blossom Immortal hastily clamored behind them. Before Arbor could reply, old man Hao Guang, who was standing nearby in a daze, suddenly jumped up and shouted while pointing at the two people, You two! Hey, you two brats, could it be that you really came out from the 1,000 caves? Who is this person? The venerable Peach Blossom Immortal turned to look at the jumping old man and asked in confusion. Arbor waved the rag at him. The venerable Immortal was speechless. He caught the rag the little fellow threw and wiped the dust on his sleeves. Arbor pointed at Hao Guang. Xuanji School's first-generation disciple, Hao Guang. She didn't lower her voice when she spoke, so everyone around heard her. A person who looked like an elder of an aristocratic family quickly walked out of the crowd and saluted with his hands cupped. Hao Guang? Is it the legendary artifact master, Senior Scattered Light? Hao Guang ignored him and glared at Mo Lien and the venerable Peach Blossom Immortal. Brat, didn't you hear what I said? How did you get out just now? The venerable Peach Blossom Immortal raised his head and smiled at the old man. Didn't you see? Of course, it was blasted all the way out. Hao Guang looked at them in astonishment. 1,000 caves. If you're talking about the Karst Cave, then it should be. The venerable Peach Blossom Immortal thought for a while and nodded. When did you fall in? How long did it take you to come out? The old man asked anxiously with a cold expression. Mo Lien looked at the old man who was jumping up and down. Her expression was very calm. It took more than 2 hours. Impossible! The old man immediately waved his hands agitatedly. His skinny old face was filled with disbelief. Absolutely impossible, impossible. To think that this old man, who is so smart and skilled in drawing, spent more than 3 months in the 1,000 caves and 10,000 caves before coming out. How could these two brats, how could it be? Impossible, absolutely impossible. The old man shook his head and waved his hands. He put his hands on his hips and shouted coldly at the two of them, Nonsense! How dare you lie to me? Tell me, how did you get out of the 1,000 caves in 2 hours? Tell me. Chapter 4452. What's going on? Is there something wrong with this old man? Why does he look like he's been dealt a huge blow? Mo Lien gazed at the old man strangely before explaining dryly, using a type of firearm to blast open a straight path, and you'll come out. Old man, exclamation point. Everyone, nonsense. 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 The old man flew into a rage and was about to scold them. Arbor said calmly, Senior, my husband was born smart. Just because you can't think of a solution, doesn't mean he can't think of one too. Scattered Light instantly wilted. He turned around angrily and called to the dumbfounded and Yang and the others. Go, go, go. Why are you standing here? Let's go back to the cave. From the beginning to the end, the old man ignored the aristocratic family elder who walked up and greeted him eagerly. That aristocratic family elder's face stiffened. Xiao Mu glanced at him before retracting her gaze. The venerable Peach Blossom Immortal was baffled. What's wrong with that old man? What did we do to him when we came out of the 1,000 caves? His face was as black as a rock. How comical! And Wu Shuang was already squatting on the ground laughing. She looked up at Mo Lien and said, Senior Scattered Light spent more than 3 months in the 1,000 caves before coming out. Do you think he hates the two of you? Ha! What a clear comparison of IQ. Ha! Mo Lien and Ma Shurchen were speechless. They had been through the 1,000 caves and knew how difficult it was inside. The old man couldn't open his inner world for 3 months. It was indeed very miserable inside. Arbor looked at Wu Shuang and the others expressionlessly. When this guy finished squatting on the ground and laughing, the little crown princess chuckled and nodded. Idiot! Princess Wu Shuang was stunned for a moment, then burst into laughter. She looked at the people around her and couldn't help but twitch her eyebrows. Sister-in-law, your smile came a little too late. Her reflexes were hilarious. She waited until everyone was done laughing before she chuckled. How comical! Gu Yishuan and the others didn't say anything. Seeing Wu Shuang and the others chattering on the other side, Gu Yishuan turned away with a cold face. Suddenly, someone called out, Look! What is that? There's light in the sea. There was no light at all. It was a large halo of light rising from the depths of the sea. Everyone hurriedly flew forward to check. They were all fighting to be the first, afraid that they would fall behind. When Arbor's group came forward, they saw a ring-shaped light array appear on the surface of the sea. It was bright and lustrous, and it slightly rippled along with the calm sea water. Entrance! It's the entrance to the mystic realm. A practitioner shouted excitedly. Without saying a word, he dashed towards the light formation in the sea and jumped in. The others also hurriedly scrambled to run there, pushing and shoving each other. The first young cultivator who jumped into the light formation let out a miserable scream. In a matter of minutes, it was shattered into pieces by a strong light. Wow! The cultivator who almost had 1 foot in hurriedly took a step back. Unexpectedly, he bumped into several other cultivators who were charging from behind him. This person was very miserable. He staggered and fell into the light formation in front of him. Once he stepped into the light formation, this person was once again ground into pieces. Not even a trace of him was left. Everyone's expression changed abruptly, and they all retreated at the same time. Arbor's group jumped down a few times and took the opportunity to jump to the front of the crowd. At this time, the light circle had already shrunk a little. A few faintly pulsating seal scripts appeared in the air. Chapter 44-53. At this moment, no one dared to go forward. They all consciously took a few steps back, staying far away from the circle of light and watching silently. That circle of light seems to be shrinking. And Wushuang looked at the circle of light that was gently floating with the sea water in surprise. The circle of light was shrinking really fast. At this rate, in less than half an hour, the entrance to the Tianji secret territory would disappear. Obviously, the other practitioners had also noticed this problem. 2 disciples of aristocratic families couldn't help but shout, "The entrance is about to close. What should we do now? Let's give it a try." How? Someone opened his eyes wide in surprise and turned to look at the disciple who spoke. "Do you want to die? If you lose your life, you'll lose everything. What's the point of talking about cultivation? What's the point of wanting treasures in the secret territory? If you die, all these things are worthless. Are you willing to accept this?" The young man clenched his fist and shouted angrily, "We're already at the entrance. Shouldn't we at least give it a try? Maybe those 2 people were just unlucky? What kind of joke was this? 2 people were torn to pieces in the circle of light. Could it be that they were both unlucky? No matter how brave they were, they couldn't disregard their own lives and choose to go forward to die at this time. If you want to go, go by yourselves. Wealth comes from danger. Fine, if you don't want to go, then I'll go." The young man clenched his fist and took a deep breath. Suddenly, he ran toward the entrance of the secret territory. Arbor and the others all stepped aside and looked coldly at him. They saw the young man rush to the entrance of the secret territory in a spurt of energy, but he suddenly stopped beside the circle of light. Seeing this, the others couldn't help but laugh out loud. "Yo, you were so high-spirited, but in the end you're scared." Arbor didn't say anything. His gaze fell on the slowly pulsing runes above the circle of light. He was concentrating on studying them when suddenly, his body tensed up as he instinctively felt a trace of danger approaching. Emo Lien reacted even faster. She pulled Arbor into her arms and pushed him with a backhand palm. A young man dressed in black was sent flying by a palm wind, and he stumbled as he rushed out. This person couldn't control his body at all. Amidst the cries of alarm, he let out a heart-wrenching scream. The young man standing at the edge of the circle of light heard the scream and turned around. He was so scared that he broke out in a cold sweat. This person was heading straight for him, and he hurriedly dodged to the side. With a splash, that person immediately fell into the sea and stepped straight into the circle of light. Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, the unlucky guy was crushed to pieces by the entrance of the secret realm and died on the spot. "Senior brother Zhou." Mu Xiaoxue cried out in grief. She covered her mouth and looked at Arbor in shock. Her face was full of disbelief. It was as if she had done something heinous in Arbor that she couldn't understand. "Miss Mu, what's so surprising about that?" Princess Wushuang could not help but sneer. Your senior brother Zhou secretly tried to push my sister-in-law over. In the end, he flew out himself. Isn't this what we said about karma? Good and evil will be repaid in the end. Why do you say that, miss? Mu Xiaoxue trembled and said in a choked voice, Senior brother Zhou, when did he push the crown princess? He's already dead. Don't slander him. Chapter 44-54. And Wushuang was simply amused by her. She cast her a sidelong glance but did not wish to speak with her. Does everyone have eyes to see? It's not something that can be confirmed by your mouths. Mu Xiaoxue was so angry that she was about to collapse, but she still maintained her calm tone. How could senior brother Zhou push the crown princess? Arbor stopped Commandery Princess Wushuang and glanced indifferently at Mu Xiaoxue. You want to see? What? Mu Xiaoxue's heart clenched. She felt that nothing good would come out of it if she continued speaking. If I can prove that your senior brother Zhou brought this upon himself, how does the City of Shadows plan to compensate? Don't boast so shamelessly. Now that there is no proof, how do you want to prove it? Just as Zhao Yi finished his sentence, he saw a palm strike coming towards him, landing heavily on his face. After a crisp slap, a palm print immediately appeared on the left side of his face. When I'm talking to your master, you'd better shut up, you dog. You! Zhao Yi covered his face with his hands, his eyes filled with shock. It was as if he could not imagine that a grown man like him would be slapped by a little girl. I already told you that my patience is very limited. Arbor sternly interrupted Zhao Yi's unfinished words. If you want to die, you can continue. Why don't you try? Senior brother Zhao, senior brother Zhao. Mu Xiaoxue was alarmed and panicked. She quickly pushed Zhao Yi, this burly man, behind her and put on an expression that showed that although she was terrified, she still braced herself to protect her senior brother. Mu Xiaoxue, don't play tricks in front of me. Arbor stared at her coldly and said, Do you know how many delicate white flowers like you I've killed since you were young? Do you want me to read out a string of names for you? Starting from Wenron, then Commandery Princess Ethan, Wu Xiaosu, Shan Yisu, and finally you. Do you know how the ones before you all died? HM? Do you want me to tell you how they all ended up? Every one of them died a horrible death. Arbor. Gu Yishuan reached out and hugged Mu Xiaoxue, who was trembling uncontrollably and roared angrily. Shut up. A vicious aura burst forth from the little stoic's body, and her palm froze into ice. She spread open her fingers, and an ice sword covered in barbs instantly appeared. The tip of the sword pointed at Gu Yishuan's neck without hesitation. The latter only felt a trace of cold air seeping into his limbs and bones from his skin. It was as if his entire body was going to be frozen in an instant. I've had enough of your nonsense. I only have one question for you. If I can prove that it was indeed someone from the City of Shadows who had malicious intentions behind my back, how will you compensate me? Pay with your life? Arbor pointed his ice sword at the ashen-faced Zhao Yi. The glittering ice sword once again moved to Gu Yishuan's chest. Trash, do you dare to bet? The entire place was dead silent. From the moment the young crown princess exploded in anger, it was truly so quiet that one could hear a pin drop, except for the occasional sound of breathing. The little girl nimbly raised her hand and continuously made several transparent hand seals. The surrounding air suddenly rippled like water ripples, dispersing in front of everyone's eyes. A faint light screen appeared, and the scene from earlier immediately appeared on the screen. Although it was soundless, everyone was not blind. Chapter 44-55. Naturally, they could see that man from the City of Shadows surnamed Zhou standing right behind the young crown princess. He suddenly reached out and pushed the young crown princess back, a trace of smugness flashing through his eyes. In the blink of an eye, Prince Mo scooped his wife into his arms and struck out with a backhand palm strike. That idiot was sent flying on the spot. Everyone looked at the City of Shadows with complicated gazes. They didn't expect a villain to launch a sneak attack from behind in such a prestigious sect like the City of Shadows. Not only were there aristocratic family disciples present, But there were also many hot-blooded mercenaries and unaffiliated itinerant cultivators. What everyone dreaded the most were villains who appeared amiable on the surface but would attack you desperately from time to time behind your back. It was truly too frightening to be around such people. Gu Yishuan's expression was also a bit unsightly. Just as he was about to speak, he heard his junior sister in his arms say meekly, "Senior brother Gu, I'm fine." Lowering his head to see his junior sister so frightened by the little stoic, Gu Yishuan couldn't help but be enraged. Mu Xiaoxue wiped the tears from the corners of her eyes and gently pushed Gu Yishuan away. She bowed at Arbor. "Crown Princess, my apologies. I didn't see Senior Brother Zhou do that just now." "Mu Xiaoxue, I told you not to provoke me." Arbor extended 2 fingers and made a gesture of communicating with her eyes. "If I had targeted you, guess how long you would have lived?" Mu Xiaoxue took a step back in fright, a dazed and frightened expression hanging on her fair face. Her entire body couldn't help but tremble slightly. "Arbor, don't threaten her. Come at me if you have anything." Gu Yishuan hastily walked forward and shielded his junior sister behind him. "Threaten?" Arbor couldn't help but sneer. "I've never done such a senseless thing." She walked step by step toward the pair of martial siblings. Gu Yishuan was actually intimidated by her aura, but in order to protect his pitiful junior sister, he forcibly suppressed the fear in his heart and stood in front of Mu Xiaoxue. "Mu Xiaoxue, do you not understand what I'm saying? I told you not to act like a little white flower in front of me. I, the Crown Princess, won't fall for your tricks like those 2 idiots beside you." Tears welled up in Mu Xiaoxue's eyes as she said pitifully, "I didn't." "Cut the crap and compensate me." Arbor interrupted her coldly. What compensation?" Mu Xiaoxue couldn't help but shudder. She felt as if she had fallen into an ice cellar. "That's enough." Lin Miao flung her sister Lin Zhen'er's hand away and shouted angrily, "Even if someone attacked you in the City of Shadows just now, he's already dead. What compensation do you want? Why don't you go underground and ask for compensation?" As soon as Lin Miao finished speaking, she felt several cold gazes land on her. Traces of killing intent made her tremble all over. She quickly retreated behind Lin Zhen'er, lowering her head and not daring to look at the Crown Prince and the others' expressions. "Compensation?" Arbor roared impatiently at Mu Xiaoxue. 10 million spirit coins. Mu Xiaoxue's eyes immediately widened. Gu Yishuan, Zhao Yi, and the others also stared at her in shock. They all cried out in unison, 10 million? Cut the crap. Arbor didn't have the patience to be long-winded with them. She slowly raised the ice sword in her hand. "It's fine if you don't want to compensate. Eat my sword." Chapter 4456. Gu Yishuan pulled Mu Xiaoxue back and stepped into the water. When they looked back, they realized that they were not far from the circle of light. They were so frightened that they hurried ashore. But an ice sword was right in front of them. "You should be glad that the idiot who stabbed me in the back is already dead." Xiao Mu gazed icily at Mu Xiaoxue as she enunciated each word. "Does the City of Shadows want to be buried with him? Compensate, 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 compensate." Lin Zhen'er rushed forward and blocked Gu Yishuan and Mu Xiaoxue. She took out a spirit coin card from her inner world and presented it with both hands. "Sister." Lin Miao could not help but stomp her foot. Lin Zhen'er ignored her and handed over a spirit coin card. Then she cupped her hands at Arbor and said, "It's a misunderstanding. It's all a misunderstanding." Mu Xiaoxue's face was slightly pale as she leaned into Gu Yishuan's arms. She seemed to be frightened and looked at Arbor in shock. Seeing her cold gaze, he quickly averted his eyes, not daring to look at her. Arbor took the spirit coin card and walked to Emolyen's side. She tugged at his sleeve and whispered, "The runes on it only represent 2 words, life and death." Emolyen was startled and looked at the circle of light that was shrinking. "I think this entrance won't last much longer." The venerable Peach Blossom Immortal smiled gloatingly. "Do you want to go in?" Arbor nodded. "Of course, let's go in. How could such a small problem stump Lord Jojo?" If Ancestor Xuanji knew that she could not even enter Ancestor Tianjizi's mystic realm, he would probably jump out of the ground and give her a good beating. Do you see the jumping runes on it? Arbor smiled. Watch my movements and follow me. Then she turned and waved at Emo Lien and the others. She turned and levitated into the air. She flew into the circle of light and flicked her fingers a few times. Emo Lien and the others could see clearly that the little fellow's fingers quickly tapped on 4 of the jumping runes. She immediately disappeared into thin air. Let's go, Emo Lien said indifferently. Then she floated over. She raised her hand and patted the runes a few times. Then she disappeared as well. Yichen, Feng Zhangqing, Rong Qing, Wu Shuang, Fu San, Ming Yasi, and Ding Yun entered the array one after another. Not good, the entrance seems to have shrunk quite a bit. What's going on? How many runes did they slap just now? Yes, the talisman. A middle-aged rogue cultivator rushed into the formation. Then he clapped a few talismans in a flurry. Immediately, a gust of wind blew. He raised his head in horror, only to see a floating light shrouding down from the sky and cutting him apart in a matter of minutes. But what's going on? How did they pass? Everyone, don't panic. Mu Xiaoxue stared at the shrinking circle of light. I know. It's a rune. You can't just slap it. I don't know if you noticed, but when they went in just now, each of them only tapped 4 times. It's the word life or death. Just now, the Crown Princess also said that the runes here only represent 2 words, life and death. Life? Were these 2 words? The runes on the surface were messy. The words were scribbled like graffiti. No one could see what the words were. Is there a talisman master here? Can you help me identify it? When a talisman master draws talismans, the words life and death are written differently from ours. Chapter 4457. Everyone looked at each other in dismay, but dissatisfaction towards the little crown princess rose in their hearts again. This crown princess was too much of a jerk. She clearly grasped the method to enter the mystic realm, but she didn't tell anyone. She didn't even explain it clearly to her own team members and only had them follow her movements. It was really difficult for her team members to see her swift and fierce speed clearly. But the majority of them really couldn't see her dazzling movements clearly. She only took 1 shot just now. Could it be that everyone in her team saw it clearly? That's right. Isn't she afraid of trapping her own teammates? Everyone was silent. It was very obvious that everyone in the other team saw it clearly. This was the difference in cultivation level. Some smart people couldn't help but silently shut their mouths. They couldn't afford to offend her. The people in the Little Stoics team all had cultivations above theirs, right? Seeing that the circle of light had shrunk to the point where only 2 people could pass through, a trace of anxiety flitted across Mu Xiaoxue's eyes. Since we don't have talisman practitioners here, how about this? I have a stupid idea. We're very sure that they took 4 shots when they went in. So there must be 4 identical runes mixed in. Let's all go look for them. But everyone was like ants on a hot pan now. Mu Xiaoxue gave them a direction, and as if they had found their backbone, they all gathered together. Across the beach, they carefully examined the runes. Indeed, hard work paid off. The group of people didn't even blink for a long time before they finally found those 4 scribbly-looking runes. Although they couldn't understand the runes on them, judging from the shape and strokes, they were probably the same. Seeing their hesitation, Mu Xiaoxue plucked up her courage and said, I'll go in first. You guys follow me. Little junior sister. All the City of Shadows disciples exclaimed in unison. Junior sister, move aside. How can I let you take the lead with senior brother here? Zhao Yi hastily shielded his junior sister behind him. I'll go. Senior brother. Mu Xiaoxue's eyes revealed that she was touched. Zhao Yi's heart rippled from her gaze, and he felt a sweetness from the depths of his heart all the way to his mouth. Zhao Yi flew into the shrinking circle of light. Arbor suddenly turned around and looked at the small slope behind him with an expressionless face. The corners of his mouth curled up with a trace of ridicule, and he pushed his little hand away to draw a talisman in the air. He gestured with his fingers, but his face remained calm. With a shout, several talisman seals flew out of thin air with a whoosh and hit the unrestrained air in front of him, emitting the sound of glass shattering. The illusion glyph array was no longer effective on her. The moment she stepped into the mystic realm, she recognized that this was the small hill behind Quoto village. He even saw Wu Yanjun stumbling out from behind the slope with a hunched back. How could she forget such a scene? On the third day after she came back to life, she ambushed Wu Yanjun at this very place. Did he think she would be afraid or scared? Did he not dare to face his past? What a joke! Everything she had done was still vivid in her mind, and she would not regret a single one of them. Arbor's face was cold and his lips curled into a cold smile. He stepped on the soft soil and slowly walked forward. Rustle, rustle, rustle. Chiu-Chiu, where's Jojo's lotus? I've already contacted her, but the Crown Prince and the Venerable Celestial are too unlucky. Arbor raised her eyebrows. Chapter 4458. Master, come with me. The little tray ant jumped down from her shoulder and ran forward with its little arms and legs. Xiao Mu swiftly followed after it and asked, either intentionally or unintentionally, "What's up with them now? They said they were robbed by a bunch of you." What? Xiao Mu's small face stiffened, and she could not resist creasing her brows. Master, what should we do? The little tray ant led the way and chuckled. They can't break the array. Master, why don't you break the array from the outside and save them? Arbor was speechless. Where are the others? I can already sense their auras. Master, you should go and save the Crown Prince first. Arbor looked helpless, but still ran after the little tray ant. A few minutes later, Xiao Mu stood on a mountain slope that stretched as far as the eye could see. Master, draw a talisman and break this illusion array. Arbor was speechless. She drew a talisman in the air and flicked it into the air in front of her. The surrounding slope was visible to the naked eye. In the blink of an eye, an emerald green color covered the entire mountain. Two figures floated in the air and appeared in front of her. Taking a closer look, the two of them had messy hair, and their sleeves were all wrinkled. The expressionless Master Jojo looked at the two of them and said, "Go find the others." Jojo. Mo Lien dashed in front of him and pulled him to her side. Jojo, you hit me. What hit you? She even kicked me a dozen times. The Venerable Peach Blossom Immortal pointed at the footprints on his robe. Did you see that? You kicked me. Master Jojo put on a cold and emotionless face. A small illusion array can make you look so pathetic. Useless. What trifling illusory formation. Mo Lien huffed. I originally thought that it was merely a mirage illusory formation. Who knew that a bunch of you would pounce on me, each with a physical body? Kicking, biting, scratching and tearing, you even forced me to hand over my Dharma treasures and spirit coins. Arbor looked at him expressionlessly. Believe me. Mo Lien reached out and held her little face. You look exactly the same as when we first met. I recognized it at a glance. It was you who was in the prime of your youth. He looks about 12 years old. The Venerable Peach Blossom Immortal twitched his mouth and pointed at the 17 or 18 small footprints on his robe. Did you see that, Jojo? These are all footprints left by a bunch of your kicks. I gave them a pile of spirit tools and Dharma treasures. Speaking of which, it's strange. After your illusions took the Dharma treasures and spirit tools, they all left. The little tray ant burst into laughter. It's not my illusion. Arbor's face was still cold. It's old man Fecta. Really? Why does it look so real? Yes, it's too real. What a bunch of you. The Venerable Peach Blossom Immortal counted silently. There are at least 100 of you. Arbor, the little tray ant said hurriedly, Master Silver, I think there's something fishy about this. Look at the two of them. There are footprints on them and their hair is messy. They really don't look like they were created by an illusion array. Could there really be 100 of you hidden in this place? Arbor glanced at the little tray ant and looked at them coldly. Let's go. Go find Wushuang and Fu San. They're nearby. The venerable Peach Blossom Immortal tidied his messy hair and walked to Emolien's side to poke her. Jojo is having a mental breakdown. Chapter 4459. Although Emolien did not say anything, the smile in her eyes had already revealed her current mood. One must know that when the two of them had just entered the illusion glyph matrix, they had seen the overwhelming number of Jojo pouncing on them, tearing, pulling, and violently robbing them. At that time, all sorts of feelings had welled up in their hearts. Chiyo could not help but laugh. But in the blink of an eye, it met its master's cold eyes and hurriedly put on a serious face. What exactly is it? Arbor looked at the two of them helplessly. She did not believe that the two of them could not even make a small illusion glyph matrix when they worked together. The reason why they stayed there must be some strange discovery. Emolien held her hands and looked at her with a smile. You may not believe it. Sigh, these Jojo that look exactly like you are all mechanical men. Arbor opened her mouth in surprise. Mechanical men? Yes, they are made of deep-sea mystic crystal. Mechanical men. Emolien nodded with a face full of certainty. Speaking of which, the craftsmanship of these mechanical men is really not bad. Yes, they are so agile. They rush up and strip off clothes to rob. Simply. The venerable Peach Blossom Immortal spread out his hands emotionally. Sir Jojo treated him with a cold face, pretending that he did not hear Rotten Peach Blossom's muttering. Yes, I understand. This fellow ended the conversation and turned around expressionlessly. Go find Wushuang. Emolien couldn't help but suppress the smile on his lips. He quickly walked to the little fellow's side and held her hand. Xiao, if you see those golems, you'll definitely like them very much. He leaned slightly and whispered in her ear. I like them too. It was so cute that it made one's face bleed. So many Jojo, covering the sky and earth, climbing up and down. It was really interesting to look at. Arbor only felt his hot breath beside her ear. It was scalding. She glanced at him without changing her expression. Her hands quietly retracted into her sleeves and she stepped forward. In an instant, her ears were a little hot. Emolien couldn't help but smile. Seeing that she didn't say anything, he teased her, Jojo, turn around and look at me. Jojo, don't panic. Although there are more than 100 Jojos, I can recognize you at a glance. There's no mistake. Jojo, take a guess. How many Jojo are there? Jojo, I suspect that this arcane realm has an owner. Arbor finally stopped and turned to him with a calm expression. You mean Ancestor Fecta isn't dead yet? It's possible. Impossible. Arbor shook his head. Why do you say that? Emolien asked with a smile. A woman's intuition. The Crown Prince turned and exchanged a glance with the venerable Peach Blossom Immortal. I believe in you, Jojo. Jojo's intuition is very accurate. Emolien couldn't help but be speechless. The little treant jumped up and down. Quick, it's right in front. I can already feel the aura of the princess and the rest. The three of them then quickened their pace and ran forward. Clusters of light pink flowers bloomed on the hillside. Each flower was only the size of a thumb. The large patch of flowers connected the sky and the ground. It looked as if they had barged into a pink world. Emolien, Arbor, and Hejechen quickly rushed to the front and saw Fu San and Wushuang being surrounded by a large group of wooden men. There were hundreds of wooden men. The key was that their limbs were very agile. When they formed a group, they actually looked like they were fighting with others. Their spiritual power overflowed and their energy was released continuously. Chapter 4460. Arbor was amazed. These wooden men even knew how to set up formations. 17 or 18 wooden men nimbly jumped onto their companions' shoulders and waved their wooden arms. Immediately, countless spiritual powers flowed out and attacked Fu San and Wushuang. Luckily, the wooden men were only at the 7th level of the spiritual realm, which was far below Wushuang and Fu San. Thus, the two of them were not in any danger. However, they did not feel any pain. They attacked the two of them in groups, which made them a little flustered. Fu San's fireballs landed on the wooden men, but the fire could not burn them. It was obvious that these wooden men were not so simple. They were made of fire-resistant materials. Arbor, Hujichen, and Emolien jumped up and landed beside the two of them. They raised their hands and slapped away the wooden men around them. "Brother, sister-in-law." And Wushuang's eyes lit up. She hurriedly shouted, "We have to think of a way to trap these things. They can't be killed or burned. Look, they can still move after being scattered." Sure enough, when Xiaomu turned around to look, she saw several wooden arms and legs scurrying back and forth around them like headless flies. It was very frightening to look at. "Move aside." Arbor frowned. He raised his hand and threw out a pitch-black round pearl. He leaped onto it and hovered in front of everyone. "What is this?" Princess Wushuang asked in surprise. Arbor did not answer. He slapped out 2 beams of divine energy and landed heavily on the heart of misfortune. The pitch-black round pearl instantly exploded with thousands of rays of strong light. Instantly, thousands of rays of light swept across everyone present and covered the wooden men that were about to charge forward. Emolien, Hujichen, Fu San, and Wushuang hurriedly raised their hands and pressed down. Abundant energy flowed through their bodies. They stood firmly on the spot and did not move an inch. Only their robes and hair danced with the strong wind. The wind whirled past and swept away the hundreds of wooden men in front of them. The black bead slowly gathered its light and fell into Arbor's hand. The little stoic turned her head to glance at the 4 people without batting an eyelid. She put away the heart of misfortune in passing and said aloofly, "Let's go." "What's that?" And Wushuang hopped over and looked around with a surprised expression. "The realm of misfortune," the venerable peach blossom immortal said with a smile. "Before we met you, we accidentally fell into the realm of misfortune. It was Jojo who refined himself into the heart of misfortune. That was how he broke the realm of misfortune and released us." Third young Master Fu and Princess Wushuang were shocked when they heard this. He had long known that this crown princess was extraordinary, but he didn't know that it would be so unexpected. The crown princess is refining the realm of misfortune for her own use. Third young Master Fu could not help but sigh. As expected of the crown princess, her abilities were outstanding. "That's right. I heard that the realm of misfortune is full of nightmares. Once people enter and let their imaginations run wild, they will be filled with strange dangers. As long as they were alive, how could they not have thoughts? Even if they strictly controlled their unrestrained thoughts, they might be able to control it for a day or 2, but how could they control it for half a month? But these wooden men aren't alive." Arbor looked indifferent. "Throw them inside and let them be." In any case, this realm of misfortune had no other uses, and Arbor had never thought of integrating it into his star domain to cause trouble. "Hey, then does that mean we can also throw them inside when we encounter zombies in the future?" Chapter 4461. Wouldn't that save a lot of trouble? Princess Wushuang suddenly had an idea. She looked at her sister-in-law with bright eyes, her face full of admiration. This heart of misfortune was too powerful. If we encounter a large number of enemies in the future, can we throw them all in and let them fend for themselves? In theory, it should be possible. Arbor nodded slowly, and Wushuang could not help but raise her eyebrows. In theory? Yes, people with high cultivation levels might not be able to absorb it, just like you guys. And Wushuang nodded in realization. Although they had retreated more than 10 steps earlier, when the heart of misfortune emitted a strong light and absorbed the wooden dummies, they could also feel a heavy pressure on their bodies. However, they could use their powers to resist, so they were not absorbed by the heart of misfortune. Of course, this was also because the little crown princess had deliberately blocked them outside. Emolien smiled and walked forward, holding Arbor's little hand. "It's done." Even if it was not easy to absorb experts above the godly state, if they encountered a large number of low-level zombie puppets in the future, they could really throw them all in to save trouble. This heart of misfortune sturdiness was different from a storage talisman. If too many random things were stuffed into the storage talisman, the things inside might break out of the walls of the talisman. However, the heart of misfortune was different. It was refined from a mystic realm, so its sturdiness could not be compared to the heart of misfortune. In the future, if Jojo did not want to fight with the zombie army, he would sweep them into the heart of misfortune and get rid of them once and for all. Of course, Arbor knew what Emolien meant. Hearing this, he looked up and chuckled. Thinking about it, if a large group of Tianyun disciples attacked and threw them all into the heart of misfortune, how would it feel? However, if there is a transcendent state expert present and uses a shield to protect them, it might not be impossible to save them. Arbor pursed his little mouth and jumped on the spot. However, if I ascend to the transcendent state one day, it will be a different story. The right path was to increase his own strength. Emolien raised her hand and patted her head. All right. You've done well enough, my Jojo. You've done something that most people can't. Yuan Shurchin nodded with a smile. Indeed. And Wushuang laughed heartily and ran forward to hold the young crown princess's hand. Sister-in-law, let's go. Where are the others now? Chiyo. In front. Follow me. The little tree-ant shook its two branches and led the group forward in a hurry. Arbor's group followed. After walking for a short distance, Arbor lowered his eyebrows, coughed, and asked, "You said that it wasn't an illusion array? Then after the formation was broken, where did all those mechanical men go?" The venerable Peach Blossom Immortal turned around and floated in front of Arbor. He said with a smile, "It's really strange. After the talisman formation was broken, those little Jojos all disappeared." "What little Jojos?" Princess Wushuang asked curiously. "Nothing." Arbor took the lead and walked forward expressionlessly, leaving Yuan Shurchin and the others behind. The venerable Peach Blossom Immortal could not help but chuckle. He turned to look at Emolien, who was looking at him sideways, and shook his finger. "Jojo is shy. You're so boring." "How am I boring?" The venerable Peach Blossom Immortal smiled. Chapter 4462. Look at her tense expression, but she's actually more curious than us, right? The venerable Peach Blossom Immortal glanced at Emolien with a smile. The latter snorted at him and strode off to chase after his wife. This Tianji mystic realm is very strange. "It's better to be careful," Princess Wushuang said seriously. "Let's find the others first." "Eldest brother." Princess Wushuang thought of something and quickly caught up to him. She said loudly, "I seem to have forgotten to tell you. The old man told us before that this place has a weapon refining cauldron even better than the heavenly forging cauldron. Our goal in this mystic realm isn't to find anything else. Our objective is to find this weapon refining cauldron." Emolien was taken aback, but then she asked with a smile, "You came here to find the weapon refining cauldron?" "Of course." And Wushuang raised her head and looked at Arbor's expressionless face with a grin. "Sister-in-law also came here for this." Xiao Mu's face was stiff and icy as she explained in passing, "I came to slap Ancestor Tianjizi's face." Everyone couldn't resist bursting into laughter. The little stoic cast them a sidelong glance until Emolien chuckled and said, "What are you laughing at? What's so funny? You're not allowed to laugh, not allowed to laugh. Master, Feng Chongqing and the others are just up ahead." The group of 5 sprinted in the direction the little tree-ant pointed. After a little less than an hour, Princess Wushuang, Third Young Master Fu, and Sir Jojo's faces all darkened. "Where are they?" "They're just up ahead." Chiyo said resolutely, "This mystic realm is huge. Don't be discouraged and keep running. You'll probably encounter them after running for another 2 hours." Everyone, "Why didn't you say so earlier?" Princess Wushuang cursed exasperatedly. She raised her hand to release a 6-winged bird and beckoned everyone to hop on. The little tree-ant sprawled on the expressionless Sir Jojo's shoulder with a solemn expression. "Fly." The 6-winged bird lifted its body and flew into the sky, its wings gliding as it flew forward at an extremely fast speed. This mystic realm is really something. The little tree-ant was blown by the strong wind. Its entire body was shaking, and its leaves were rustling. Princess Wushuang turned around and almost burst out laughing. This thing's thin arms and legs were slightly disheveled in the wind, and the few sparse leaves on its head were rustling. This image was simply comical. "Shut up," Arbor said expressionlessly as he pulled it off his shoulder and held it in his arms, blocking the wind for it. The little treant was so touched that tears welled up in its eyes. Its pair of bean-like little eyes looked at Xiao emotionally. "Master, you're so good to Chio." Arbor patted the top of the tree. "Can you feel it? It's coming, it's coming. It's right in front. Do you see it?" Princess Wushuang was standing below the neck of the six-winged flying bird. Therefore, she could see the chaotic battle of the five spirits at first glance. The six-winged flying bird circled twice in the sky, but it could not find a place to land. However, some of the people in the chaotic battle below had already noticed their arrival. Someone screamed, "Enemy attack!" All kinds of five spirits' power, rising and falling, immediately smashed toward them. The six-winged flying bird's dodging speed was also very fast. It flew back and forth in the colorful spiritual power, dodging countless attacks, and let out a shrill cry. Chapter 4463. Ming Yasi's sword rose and fell, instantly chopping down an unlucky bastard who didn't know better. When they looked up, they saw a large bird with 6 wings circling above their heads. It just couldn't find a place to land. The group of idiots around them seemed to have been injected with chicken blood. Blinded by their impulsiveness, they threw water spirits and fire spirits at the bird as if they didn't cost anything. "It's the Holy Maiden and the others." Feng Changqing turned the hilt of his sword and smashed away a lunatic pouncing man. He looked up and said, "Heh, I can't believe you're still in the mood to go easy on them." Young Master Ding dodged and chopped off a round head. "These people are heavily poisoned. They've completely lost their minds. We can't let them live." Crown Prince Rong quickly stepped forward and waved at the bird in the sky. "Jojo." "They're all here," and Wushuang looked down, then turned to Arbor and Emo Lien and nodded slightly. In the next moment, Princess Wushuang quickly put her 6-winged bird back into the spirit beast space. The 5 of them descended from the sky and landed beside Rong Qing and Feng Changqing. Feng Changqing turned to look at Arbor and said happily, "Holy Maiden, are you all right?" "We're fine." Arbor expressionlessly knocked down a young girl pouncing at him and sent her flying with a kick. "What's going on?" "I don't know. We just broke the illusion array and reunited. Then we ran into these people. They all seemed to have lost their minds. They pounced on us, bit us, and tore us apart. They looked like they wanted to fight us to the death." Arbor frowned and slapped the back of a fat middle-aged man. The latter staggered and fell to the ground, but before he could get up with a roar, Xiao Mu kicked him in the back. It was as if he had been crushed by a large mountain, and his whole body heavily fell back onto the ground. Arbor's gaze fell on the man's back. There were some burnt talisman ashes on the man's back. Arbor raised an eyebrow and muttered to himself, "Puppet talisman?" When he said this, everyone looked around vigilantly. "There's a talisman master here?" Arbor stretched out a finger, disdain in his eyes. He took some unburned talisman ashes from the middle-aged man's back and rubbed them between his fingers. Crown Prince Mo immediately took out a clean handkerchief and pulled over his wife's small hand, wiping her fingers in a considerate manner. "A talisman master from the Tianji secret realm has sneaked in." Arbor stretched out 2 fingers and drew a mind-tranquil talisman. Talismans like this one usually, so many talismans estites. Feng Zhangqing, Ming Yasi, Rong Qing, and Wushuang, and the others were naturally aware of her identity as a grand talisman master, but they rarely saw her draw talismans in the air. Her movements were smooth and graceful, and her fingers moved like a dragon without the slightest pause. The same thought floated in everyone's minds. Watching the young crown prince consort make seals was simply a kind of visual pleasure. As the mind-tranquil talismans appeared out of thin air, rays of talisman light fell onto the backs of the people around her. All the people who were tearing each other apart lowered their hands in confusion. Arbor glanced at them. He only had a vague impression of a few of them. They seemed to be disciples of the aristocratic families of the divine prefecture. He didn't recognize the rest. Who are these people? Princess Wushuang asked in surprise. Third young Master Fu's mouth twitched. Shuang Shuang. We met them at the entrance of the secret realm. Chapter 4464. Oh. And Wushuang nodded and glanced at the crowd in confusion. So it's them. How did they end up like this? Arbor was also puzzled. Her hands didn't stop moving as she inserted mind-cleansing talismans into everyone's bodies one by one. Not long after, the middle-aged fat uncle who had been injected with the mind-cleansing talisman woke up. He sat up from the ground and looked at Arbor and the others in confusion. Suddenly, he bounced up and asked, "Why are you here?" He touched the bloodstains on his chest and screamed in fright, "Why am I bleeding so much?" Feng Zhangqing and the others couldn't help but roll their eyes. "Uncle, stop screaming. You were all controlled by the puppet talisman. That's why you surrounded us and attacked us." After that, they even started killing each other. Crown Prince Rong hurriedly said, "Look at the knife in your hand. There, did it land on that person's butt?" The fat uncle turned around and saw that his weapon was indeed on the butt of an unlucky person behind him. That unlucky person was lying face down on the ground. It was obvious that he was dead. The fat uncle screamed in fright and hurriedly pulled his knife out of the person's body. He couldn't hold the knife steady and it almost fell to the ground. He screamed, How did this happen?" "I already said that you were controlled by the puppet talisman." Young Master Ding rolled his eyes speechlessly. "Miss Chiao saved you with the mind-cleansing talisman. Stop screaming." The plump uncle recovered his senses in a state of shock, and he turned to look at Xiao Mu and Emo Lien, who were standing a few steps behind him. The little crown princess was still drawing talismans in the air and pushing out one talisman after another. When she saw the fat uncle looking at her in horror, she only glanced at him indifferently. After using the last mind-cleansing talisman, Arbor's body swayed slightly. Emo Lien hurriedly reached out and held her in his arms. "Jojo." Emo Lien frowned slightly, his handsome face full of disapproval. To put it bluntly, the life and death of these people had nothing to do with them. He was not happy to see his Charl exhaust his talisman power to save these ungrateful people. "It's nothing. It's just that I've used too much talisman energy." Arbor patted the back of his hand to comfort him. He frowned and said coldly, "It's not to save them. I just don't want the 3 continents to become even more chaotic. If these people all died in this secret realm at the same time, then if nothing unexpected happened, the clans, mercenary groups, and clans that they belong to would definitely cause a great deal of trouble. At that time, they would suspect and fight each other, and the entire world would definitely become even more turbulent and uneasy." Emo Lien's heart softened. She stroked her hair and said in a low voice, "Jojo, how can I help you recover?" "I'm fine. My talisman energy recovers quite quickly. I'll be fine after resting for a while." After saying that, he reached out and took out a pill and swallowed it. "What are you doing?" And Wushuang reached out to block the fat uncle who was walking forward. "Are you looking for trouble?" No, miss, you misunderstood." The fat uncle looked embarrassed. He stammered, Miss Chiao saved us." "What Miss Chiao?" "That's my sister-in-law. She's called the Crown Princess." It was indeed inappropriate to call her the Crown Princess when they were out training. She thought for a moment and said, "Call her Madame M.O." As the Crown Prince's #1 fan, Princess Wushuang felt that she had to protect her brother's sovereignty. The fat uncle nodded repeatedly. "Madame M.O., thank you for saving us." Chapter 4465. Words cannot express my gratitude. I am a member of the Defei mercenary group. Although my cultivation is lacking, but in the future, if Madam needs any help, just say the word, and I will definitely do my best to help. And Wushuang couldn't help but smile, thinking, I didn't expect this chubby middle-aged uncle to be such a sentimental person. Arbor's eyes flickered slightly, and he turned to look at the chubby middle-aged uncle, nodding lightly with an indifferent expression. Soon, many aristocratic family disciples, mercenaries, and rogue cultivators who had regained consciousness also came forward and cupped their hands to express their gratitude to the little crown princess. Some people's expressions were a little unnatural. They probably recalled how they had secretly cursed the little crown princess in their hearts at the entrance of the secret realm, and now they felt very embarrassed when they thought about it. Everyone, does anyone else remember what happened? Feng Zhangqing asked in a low voice. Why were all of you affected by the puppet curse? Who cast this curse on you? Do you have any recollection? Hearing this, everyone shook their heads and looked at each other. Someone recalled, at that time, we were able to enter the Tianji secret realm with great difficulty, and we were all very excited. When we came in, we only saw a scene of white mist in front of our eyes. Yes, I also saw a scene of white mist. After that, I don't know what happened to the others. I only felt that my head was dizzy for a moment, as if someone had punched me a few times. Yes, did you feel the same? Indeed. The chubby middle-aged uncle scratched his head. Everyone, just now you said that we were affected by the puppet curse? But may I ask, can this kind of curse only work if it is used on us face to face? That may not be so. Arbor looked at the chubby uncle who asked the question and said expressionlessly, a great curse master can cast a puppet technique thousands of miles away and take a person's head with a snap of his fingers. Everyone couldn't help but gasp. Arbor saw that they were scared out of their wits and were all dumbstruck, so he continued, however, to prepare so many puppet curses is definitely a big deal. That's right. There are over 100 people here, and all of them have been affected by the puppet charm. And Wu Shuang came to a sudden understanding. So the person that utilized the puppet talisman definitely possesses more than just these few talismans, right? Arbor nodded again, agreeing with Wu Shuang's opinion. Indeed. He must have at least 1,000 talismans in his hands, which is why he can use them so freely. Madame Mo, do you think the person who cast the spell on us is still among us? That's possible. The disciples of aristocratic families, mercenaries, and rogue cultivators immediately burst into an uproar. They looked at each other with vigilance in their eyes. But I don't think that's very likely. Arbor's expression was indifferent. Just now, I gave each of you a mind-cleansing talisman to remove the puppet spell on your body. In other words, all of you should have been affected. If the person behind the scenes wanted to control you, it's unlikely that he would also be affected by the puppet charm. In that case, wouldn't that person be unable to properly appreciate what the people under his control looked like now? Then who could it be? The group of people were like headless flies, their faces filled with nervousness. Will this person come to harm us again? Chapter 4466. 5:0218 people were different from each other. Arbor glanced at the chubby uncle and nodded with an honest expression. I think so. Everyone instantly looked as if the sky was about to fall. Like ants on a hot pan, they paced in front of Arbor's group. What should we do? They came to the mystic realm to ask for a lucky treasure, not to lose their lives. Arbor glanced at them and decided not to scare these timid fellows. Calm down. Actually, you don't have to worry too much. A talisman master needs talisman power to send talismans from thousands of miles away. Arbor said calmly, someone must have injected a puppet talisman into you the moment you entered the mystic realm. According to my estimation, the talisman master's talisman power should have been almost depleted. It will take some time for him to recover. Madam, then what about you? You should have used up a lot of talisman power when you dispelled the talisman for us. Now, have you recovered? The little crown princess nodded very honestly. Prince Mo stood at the side. He wanted to give his little wife some advice, but she had already nodded in response. Sure enough, when he looked at the faces of those fools, they looked even more hopeless than if the sky were about to fall. The youth who spoke earlier cried out, Crown Princess, you recovered so quickly. It seems that the talisman power didn't take long to recover. Arbor blinked. She suddenly felt speechless with these people. Why were they so stupid? Was she the same as other talisman masters? These people always used her as the standard. Were there differences between people? Mo Lien coughed lightly and quickly changed the topic. Previously, You moved together in a large group with a clear target. Others only needed to use their divine perception to search for you, and you could be assassinated from afar. Why don't you split into small groups? Prince Mo said in a low voice. Moreover, that charm master shouldn't be able to recover so quickly within a few hours. Split up and act separately. Consciously restrain your aura. The other party definitely won't be able to catch all of you in one go. Unless they met again, they couldn't blame anyone but themselves for being unlucky. Stay alert and don't trust others so easily. That was all they could say. Since everyone had chosen to enter the mystic realm to train, they should have expected to encounter all kinds of dangers, right? Young Master Mo, Madam, everyone still wanted to say something, but Feng Zhangqing stepped forward and cupped his fists. Everyone, you'd better split up as soon as possible and pay attention to restrain your aura. Let's go. Arbor, Mo Lien, and the others nodded and followed Feng Changqing's footsteps. They turned around and left, leaving behind a large group of people. They looked at each other, and for a moment, they were shrouded in gloomy clouds. Sister-in-law, I think those people just now seem to want to follow us. And Wu Shuang touched his chin and whispered, was I mistaken? Arbor shook her head. They were all smart people. Naturally, they could see the desire in those people's eyes. However, would they bring these burdens with them? Besides, they were originally relying on their own ability to search for treasures in the mystic realm. If everyone found treasures together, would they still need to draw their swords and fight to the death? Don't worry about it. Arbor's expression was indifferent. We've helped where we can, but we still have to walk our own path. Chapter 4467. 50219. How sad. They were not related to each other. She felt bad about troubling others, right? Xiao Mu's original intention was to be herself. Who is it? Who is so generous to put so many puppet charms on people? And Wu Shuang muttered to herself as she walked. Don't think about it if you can't figure it out. Arbor waved her hand. We will meet them anyway. Just think of a way to deal with them. That's true. Princess Wu Shuang giggled. She held her hands behind her back and skipped forward. There's no use thinking so much. This person dares to put puppet charms on people from thousands of miles away. I think it must be. She suddenly paused and looked behind her warily. Everyone else also stopped in their tracks and turned around to look. There was nothing behind them. Only a gentle breeze blew by. There seemed to be no movement at all. Arbor curled her lips. Several ebony blue talismans floated from her fingertips and flew over. The air that was hit by the ebony talismans started to distort. Third young Master Fu and Princess Wu Shuang threw out a few fireballs and water balls, hitting the fluctuating air. Then they heard a few muffled sounds. The distorted air instantly calmed down. Since you are so interested, why don't you show yourself? Arbor said coldly. More than 10 ebony blue talismans flew over with a flick of her finger and landed in the air around them. Along with the layers of ripples in the air, muffled sounds could be heard one after another. Suddenly, a person rolled over from the front. He rolled very smoothly and looked like a big fat ball. Master Jojo expressionlessly stretched out his leg and kicked hard. The corners of everyone's mouths twitched as they watched the fat ball fly out with a shio sound. It drew a beautiful arc in the air before finally landing on the ground with a dong sound. Arbor's movements were also very fast. When the fat ball landed with a thud, she had already slapped a teleportation talisman on herself. She was already in front of the fat ball. Everyone was speechless. As expected, they saw someone's next move. He kicked the fat ball back again. That chubby ball rolled all the way to Mo Lien, Feng Changqing, and the others with a grunt. Only after Mo Lien lightly waved his sleeve did it stabilize its figure, and it rolled several times on the spot before coming to a stop. This fellow had been kicked back and forth until he was dizzy. Even though he had stopped, his head was still spinning in circles. A pair of small eyes stared blankly at the row of 8 people standing in front of him. His expression was as innocent as it could be. Fellow heroes, what are you all doing? Xiao Mu strode up to the fat ball and flicked her fingers in the air, taking out a pure gold club with barbs from her inner world. "What are you doing?" The fat ball let out an ear-piercing shriek and immediately covered its chest with its hands, making an indescribably terrified expression. Arbor's face was cold. There's nothing in this world that can't be solved with a beating. Everyone was speechless. Sister-in-law's words make sense. What should we do? Princess Wushuang burst out laughing. Her eyes rolled and she looked at the unlucky fatty on the ground with a smile. Old fatty. What old fatty? That fellow looked insulted. I have a name. Oh? May I know your name? Chapter 4468. This humble one is called Tian Tantuzi. Everyone, they glanced at the bald patch of Mediterranean on the fat ball's forehead. They felt that this name was a bit strange. Baldy Tian, could it be that you're Senior Tianjizi's son? Princess Wushuang looked at him in astonishment. Arbor, who was slowly walking over, creased her elegant brows when she heard this. She stared at that person with an odd and severe gaze, and the barbed golden club in her hand suddenly grew larger. It weighed heavily in her hand. This large club looked too textured, scaring Tian Tuzi into trembling nonstop. He repeatedly shouted, "Junior sister, junior sister. You, don't act recklessly, junior sister. I'm your senior brother. Little junior sister." Everyone looked at the fat ball with strange gazes. This fellow was too fat. He struggled for a long time before he finally crawled up from the ground. His belly and waist were so thick that he couldn't even see his own feet when he stood on tiptoe in front of them. This fat ball, who was about the same height as a little girl and looked to be in his 50s, actually called her junior sister. This made the group of young masters feel disgusted, and at the same time, they had an impulse to beat him up. Is little junior sister someone you can randomly call out? What are you randomly calling out for? Who are you? I'm Tian Tuzi. Little junior sister, calm down, little junior sister, don't hit me. Tian Tuzi raised his hands pitifully and repeatedly shouted, "Little junior sister, I'm your senior brother, really. Senior brother, senior brother, senior brother. We're from the same sect, same origin, same master. Hey, don't hit me. My master is Tianjizi. You're not Senior Tianjizi's son. You're his disciple?" And Wushuang and Arbor asked one after another. Tian Tuzi hastily nodded like a quail. I'm his disciple. No, I'm not his son, I'm not. As soon as he said this, everyone could feel the gloomy pressure of the chilly wind around them lessen considerably. The gloomy low pressure on Sir Jojo's body finally receded a little. "Why are you calling me junior sister? Confess honestly," the little stoic demanded coldly. Little junior sister, ever since you contracted with the Tianji treasure blueprint, I received your message. And half a strand of your consciousness." Arbor was stunned. His eyes became even gloomier. "When did you take my soul consciousness?" Her divine sense had unknowingly fallen into the hands of an unfamiliar person? What if he was used by others? Arbor could not imagine it. Mo Lien and He Chen's expressions turned even colder as they stared at the fat ball. "You have another copy of the Tianji treasure map? Why don't you take her consciousness?" No. This Tianji treasure map was created by his master. Master said that the power of the Tianji treasure blueprint was too great, so at that time, it was split into two. The one in junior sister's hand is a child map. There's also a master map. It's been with master for a long time. YY Master once said that not everyone can form a contract with the Tianji treasure blueprint. Innate talent is one, and bloodline is another. Junior sister, you not only have outstanding innate talent, but you must have some kind of bloodline connection with master, right? Don't misunderstand. No, I didn't take half a strand of junior sister's consciousness. It was absorbed by the master map when the Tianji treasure map was contracted. Junior sister is related to master by blood. Chapter 4469. Moreover, she's master's final disciple. We definitely won't harm her. The fat ball repeatedly waved his hands in agitation. Emolian looked at him suspiciously. Why were you sneaking around just now? Speak. Princess Wushuang roared from the side, giving the fat ball a fright. He shrunk back and promptly confessed honestly, I sensed, when he saw Ma Yingqian and Emolian looking at him, this fellow shuddered and hastily said, No, it was I who discovered that the mother map of the Tianji treasure diagram sensed something. I almost couldn't control that mother map and make it fly out of the tomb on its own. Tian Tuzi hastily said, So, I guess that little junior sister must have accidentally stumbled into Master's mystic realm. I was very agitated, I especially wanted to take a look at her. This fat ball timidly glanced at the little stoic and stammered, I don't have any ill intentions, I just wanted to stealthily take a few glances at little junior sister inside the invisibility formation, I wanted to confirm her identity first. He stammered as he spoke, but he still fully explained the cause of the incident. The little stoic said expressionlessly, Although I contracted the Tianji treasure diagram, I don't know the slightest bit about mechanisms and concealed weapons. At that time, she was completely clueless about the mechanisms and concealed weapons in the Tianji treasure diagram, so she threw it all to the two youths to learn. Speaking of which, Ancestor Tianji Zi's true disciples should be Mo Lian and Duan Yu. Didn't that mean she had to slap these two idiots in the face? Only then could she fulfill Senior Xuanji's dying wish? The little stoic pondered it. It was still a bit difficult for her to slap these two people's faces. But although it was difficult, it didn't mean it was impossible. She had to slap their faces. She was a person who placed great importance on promises. She had to carry out her promise to the end and fulfill Senior Xuanji's dying wish. Our dear Emolian stood on the side and inexplicably felt the temperature drop around her. There was a wisp of evil wind brushing past her boom. Caught off guard, Prince Mo was kicked in the butt by the little stoic, and he stumbled forward a few steps with a stupefied expression. He turned his head around and cried out aggrievedly, "What are you doing, wife?" And Wushuang and third young Master Fu were also dumbfounded as they stared at the person who had suddenly raised his foot to attack. On the other hand, the eyes of Ming Yasi and young Master Ding, who were watching from the side, lit up slightly, and they chuckled as they called out, "Ha, well done. I got beaten up." The little stoic didn't waste words with her husband. She rummaged around in her inner world, took out an ordinary rolling pin, and swung it at her husband's butt. What goes around comes around, and there's always this day. You didn't expect that there would be a day when you would be spanked by me. Why did he ask her? There was only one reason, and that was that it wasn't appropriate to beat him up anywhere. Let's slap her face. If we disfigure that beautiful face, we'll really be heartbroken. She couldn't hit his waist. A man's waist was very important. All he could do was hit his buttocks. I'm following Ancestor Xuanji's orders to beat Ancestor Tianjizi's disciple. This guy shouted as he beat him up. Mo Lian was extremely innocent, and she turned around to dodge as she ran. Wife, that guy called you junior sister. Your Ancestor Tianjizi's personal disciple. We have the Tianjizi treasure blueprint as proof. Less nonsense? Are you convinced? Arbor chased her husband back and forth with a rolling pin in his hand. Don't even think about running away. Chapter 4470. The venerable Peach Blossom Immortal was about to choke from laughing. He clutched his stomach that hurt from laughing and repeatedly waved his hand. All right, quickly stop. I'm about to die from laughter. Junior sister. Stop for a moment and listen to this older brother first. The atmosphere instantly became a bit distorted and strange. Tian Tuzi expressed that he truly couldn't understand. Hey, Baldy, hurry and make them stop. What's going on? Was it you? Was it this old punk who fed my sister-in-law some bewitching poison? Princess Wushuang grabbed the old punk's chest and berated him angrily. What Baldy? Tian Tuzi's small eyes widened in anger from embarrassment. This humble one is Tian Tuzi. I'm telling you, I didn't do anything. Loosen. Miss, how can you be so rough? The little stoic chased after him with several large strides and swung her rolling pin at Emolien. Do you concede? Hurry and kneel down and kowtow to Ancestor Xuanji and shout 3 times that Tianjizi's disciple can't defeat Xuanji's disciple. Say you admit defeat and say you're wholeheartedly convinced. Hurry and speak. Everyone. With a helpless expression, Prince Emo reached out and pulled the little fellow, who was bouncing after him, into his arms. Do you concede? The little stoic huffed beside his ear with a taut face. I concede, concede, concede. Emolien nodded repeatedly, exasperated. Tianjizi's disciple admits defeat and is wholeheartedly convinced. If you concede, then why are you running? The stoic faced him expressionlessly and said as if she was reading a book, truly traveling far and wide only to find what you're looking for without even looking for it. Everyone's mouths twitched. The little stoic continued to recite, I didn't expect that the successor of the Tianjizi treasure blueprint would be Tianjizi's personal disciple. Present, present, present. Your husband is present. Emolien nodded as he revealed a resplendent smile. Wife, you tell me. I will beg for mercy when I should, kneel when I should, and lie down when I should. You can do whatever you want, as your husband is yours. Arbor's face did not fluctuate at all, but the corners of his mouth couldn't help but raise from the bottom of his heart. Stop being so glib. She turned her head, and Emolien also turned her head to look at Pang Chio. She threw him a gloating look. Senior brother Baldi, good luck to you. I'm impressed. This brother also surrenders. Before Xiaomu could make things difficult for him, Tian Tuzi, this guy, had no moral integrity at all and immediately surrendered by raising the white flag. What kind of joke was this? Could it be that it would look better to be beaten up by junior sister and then admit defeat? Get out of the way. Jojo, Sama slapped Emolien's paw to get him to let go. She turned around and cupped her hands in the direction of the horizon. She then said in a dignified manner, Ancestor Xuanji, your spirit in heaven must have seen this, right? I've completed the 3 things I promised you. In the future, we'll go our separate ways. If you don't come looking for me, I won't trouble you. After finishing his speech, this fellow raised 3 talisman papers in the air, which ignited and swayed without wind. The venerable peach blossom immortal floated to her side with a smile. The more he looked at this fellow, the more amused he was. He couldn't resist teasing, Jojo, were you burning Joss paper just now? What Joss paper? Talisman paper. Arbor gave him a sidelong glance and was in a rare mood to explain. Transmission talismans. She stretched out 2 fingers and gestured at the sky. Xuanji received it, so she definitely won't bother me again in the future. What taking care of the dragon clan? What helping the merfolk? Don't mention it again in the future. Chapter 4471. The venerable peach blossom immortal was slightly taken aback before chuckling cheerfully. He said softly, what a silly child. Your unilateral decision to draw a clear line between you and Ancestor Xuanji seems amusing, but in reality it's filled with melancholy and helplessness. Who knows? When you meet the Dragon Clan of Forgetfulness again, perhaps you'll meet with weapons. You've made it clear to Ancestor Xuanji long ago that they're completely separate. If you really do fight in the future, there's no need to restrain yourself. Don't worry, Senior Xuanji isn't that kind of dim-sighted person. If she knows in the netherworld, she definitely won't make things difficult for you. Shichen comforted him softly before turning to look at the fat ball, Tian Tuzi. I have something to ask you. Tian Tuzi shrunk his neck and hastily nodded. This one will definitely tell you everything he knows. Feel free to ask whatever your esteemed self wants. Little junior sister actually managed to find Master's mystic realm by chance. This is definitely fate. Little junior sister expressionlessly looked at him and splashed a bucket of cold water over him. It wasn't by chance. It was Senior Haiguang who guided me here. My trip this time was specifically to slap Ancestor Tianji's face. Tian Tuzi, little junior sister. Arbor spread her fingers. Don't call me that. Although I contracted the Tianji treasure blueprint, it's just a divine weapon to me. It's for my use. There are many theories on concealed weapons and mechanisms inside, and the learner is someone else. Ancestor Tianji's personal disciple is hubby. It's Duanyu. Tian Tuzi nodded repeatedly but still asked, "Little junior sister, do you want to meet master?" Arbor was silent for a moment before slowly nodding. The Tianji treasure blueprint had saved her from danger several times. Speaking of which, Ancestor Tianji had unknowingly protected her more than once. Tian Tuzi instantly looked gratified and murmured, "Little junior sister and senior Xuanji also have a lot of connections?" From what little junior sister said just now, she had completed the 3 things she promised. Presumably, little junior sister and senior Xuanji also had some kind of promise? Arbor didn't answer. He chin curled his lips slightly and looked at the fat ball. "Let me ask you, did you create the bunch of mechanical puppets in JoJo's style? After Ming Yasi, young Master Ding, Rong Qing, and the others fell into the secret realm, they had never seen a golem that looked like JoJo, so they naturally did not know about this matter." Hearing Yuan Shurchen's question, he looked at Arbor, who was standing at the side. Sir JoJo's expression did not change at all. His expression was calm and steady. Young Master Ding couldn't help but burst into laughter. Who the hell knew how much the stoic face was on the verge of a mental breakdown right now? How could anyone tell from his expression? "You did it?" Mo Lian's cold eyes stared at Tian Tuzi. "Why aren't you telling the truth?" Tian Tuzi nodded frantically. I'll confess, I didn't say I wouldn't confess. Those mechanical puppets were created by me. I think that Master will definitely like this little inner disciple. I made a few of them according to her half-wisp of divine sense. So that's how it was. Mo Lian mused inwardly. When JoJo contracted with the Tianji treasure blueprint, he was 12 years old. No wonder that bunch of Jajas were all at this age. After the more I made them, the smoother they became. Just, Tian Tuzi peeked at little junior sister's expression and repeatedly said with a heavy heart, "Little junior sister, I didn't do it on purpose. These mechanical puppets originally weren't so nimble. After your half-wisp of divine sense floated out of Master's tomb." You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.